And I can see me. Can you see me?
I can't see anything.
I see a black.
Me neither.
And
Why do I have a black screen and nothing but a black screen?
There we go.
Oh, okay. Just the massive delay. Well, I can see us on StreamYard.
Yeah, there
okay.
it goes on YouTube.
And we're on YouTube. We're live! So, welcome to anyone who's watching. I don't know how many people that is. I've just glanced down and there's at least me in the chat. And Anti-Tracker as well. Amazing. So we could just talk.
We'll just talk and we'll be the chat too. So it makes it easy.
And that definitely makes it easier to... So, I mean, people are going to miss the reason we're here, because I was going to throw Old Media Guy under the bus and say the only reason we're streaming right now is because he wanted a stream to go on and didn't want to do it himself. So I'm here.
It's true.
You got 4 people watching the stream now, so there's at least one person that's not us.
Yeah, thanks,
Unless
Mom.
I've got it open.
Appreciate
it.
it.
Wait, I think I've got it open twice.
Yeah. Of course, it could be Mrs. Anti-Tracker. I told her about the stream, but I told her not to watch because you were here, Doctor.
Yeah, I thought that would be very sensible. So yeah, hang on. I'm going to lurch towards the camera. So I now closed the other tab, which is supposedly also running it. So there should only be 3 people watching now, perhaps. I don't know. Yeah, stuff to do with time, possibly, and welcome to Old Media Guy. Of course, hopefully you all know his amazing channel, and particularly all the Play That Goes Wrong stuff, which is doing very well. And Old Media Guy, would you like to introduce yourself and talk about your awesomeness?
Let's see. My awesomeness talk should last about 5 seconds. It's like a micro TED talk.
Get ready, Anti-Tracker.
Say I've done like 1 or 2 things right in my life. Thank you, and sit down. I fell in love with the Goes Wrong TV show, including all the specials they've done. Peter Pan Goes Live and so on. Have not been able to see anything they've done live. They're in London, but I can't get there. But they're bringing back a form of comedy that basically died with the Three Stooges. When I say the Three Stooges, I mean before they got too old to do the stunts. And they're doing it in a much smarter way than if someone had decided simply to recreate the Three Stooges act. It wouldn't quite work, but they're doing it in a smarter way. They're updating it. They're making use of all the latest editing and technology that you could not have done before, along with some really superior comic talent. And we're so used to comedy because there's so many good comedians out there of different shades and types. But these people they're the dancers of the comedy world, because they practice and practice and practice these jokes to make sure they're safe. And then when they perform them on screen, they react as if everything really is going wrong right in front of their eyes. That's why I started with Bryony Corrigan, because she has the expression of someone who's just dying inside when these things are going wrong. It's not that I don't like dramatic actors. It's just I like laughing more than I like crying. So I thought it would be fun to put some of their videos together in such a way that if you only had 5 minutes, you could watch it and it would whet your appetite. You'd go watch more of what they do. And that seems to be what's happening. I seem to have cornered the market in Britain and in America for 5-minute videos, right? You got your 5 minutes off of work. You want to watch something funny. Well, giving them 5 minutes worth of a really great comedy team seems to have worked. So I look forward to their second season.
I agree. I still haven't watched their actual full-length shows because it reminded me of something that didn't quite die in this country. In other words, British farce. And things like Whoops, There Goes My Trousers had long ago made my stomach churn with its sort of stale...
Wait, is that a thing? Whoops, There Goes My Trousers?
That was a farce that came out in the 90s.
Really?
That one just came to my mind.
So you say British farce, and I'll tell you, as an American, what comes to my mind is like Monty Python, the classic stuff like that.
No. They were taking the piss out of that kind of old... They were alternative comedy. They were the first alternative comedy. Farce goes back a lot further. I mean, it's...
Right.
It goes back probably the 18th century, and
Well, yeah, I understand. Well, I know farce goes back a long ways.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, when you say British farce, I think of Monty Python, not whoops, there goes my trousers.
But you have to remember that the old style of farce just persisted and didn't go away, and still hasn't. Because that, like, as whoops, there go my trousers, was brought out in the 90s, and that was what, when I first saw, caught a glimpse of the play that goes wrong and those sort of things, the first thing that came to my mind was whoops, there go my trousers. And I thought, oh God, no, not again, not more farce. But now I've seen the 5-minute clips that Old Media Guys put together, I realize that, yeah, they are doing something, you're right, much more in line with the Three Stooges. It is faster, funnier than the old, tired, it never went away fast. And not to be confused with the later British comedy of Monty Python et al., which are another whole realm of awesomeness.
There's a style of farce where something goes wrong and it's immediately turned to a sexual connotation. And that's what Spike Milligan did with his Q series.
Oh, God, yeah, the Q. Yeah, I've only seen 1 or 2 episodes of Q, and I really need to go away and watch that properly, because it is a rare gem that is often completely overlooked, even by me. Yeah.
But one thing I like about the Goes Wrong crowd is they don't do that. They will have a few jokes that have a sexual aspect to them, but the actors don't act like, "Ooh, I'm secretly turned on by this." They're acting like, "Oh God, this just happened in front of the camera. This is the end of my career." So to me, it's real life, except it's funny.
Yeah, it did look a lot more. Yeah, a lot cleverer than the old-fashioned farces.
It sounds like it's one of those things where it's funny because it's not happening to you.
Oh, very much.
And so one of those things, you see someone slip on a banana peel in real life, and you might laugh at them because, yeah, that's not funny, but it's funny that it's not happening to me. So I can see, as opposed to the over-the-top kind of, obviously this was all set up.
Yeah, the Three Stooges, they didn't telegraph too bad, but everyone knew they were in on what was going to happen.
Right.
You have a great comic actor like Buster Keaton. He's the paragon. There hasn't been a performer like him since, at least in the English-speaking world. I know that Jacques Tati is supposed to be revered in France, but I've never seen his stuff. But they're almost on Buster's level. And that's like saying they're almost at Mozart's level. That's how high up Buster is. And yeah, it's just like you're describing. These people pretend to be characters who are shocked, horrified, and dying inside when these things are going wrong. But of course, they all know it's going to happen, and they've planned it. It's wonderful. It's wonderful stuff.
Well, and that's why good comedy is so much harder to do than tragedy or serious drama, because to bring out that element, to get the audience to buy into you that you're surprised by this, that can be very difficult to pull off. And that's why so much of the time comedy, like in America, the whole vaudeville thing, they just go over the top because they know they can't really convince you of anything, so they don't even try.
Yeah. To me, it comes down to how. Oh, go ahead.
You reminded me that we should introduce the third person on our panel, Anti-Trekker. Maybe you should tell us about yourself, and because you're like really small and obscure, and maybe people might not know who you are.
Well, I haven't been around that much lately because I've been dealing with a lot of stupid health issues, which the latest of which I'll show my lovely face for a minute. Yes, this is not a prop. This is not I'm not doing a farce. That's just. Recovering from the surgery that I had a couple of days ago, and believe me, you want that on my face. So because the alternative, as
opposed to where else?
True story here, Dr. Alex.
Oh God, what have I unleashed?
Yes. Now, and I did say this on my channel already, but this is 100% true. So they gave me, I cannot right now blow my nose. Like that would do damage to the stuff they've done the surgery on. So I can't do that. But there's a lot of stuff in there because if you imagine a surgical area, there's a lot of bleeding and stuff going on. And so you're constantly having a buildup around where they did the surgery. So but you can't blow it out. So what you have to do is actually use a saline wash that you push up into your nose gently to try and loosen and get some of that stuff out, right? So
Yeah.
they give me the product and to use and everything, and then I have to look it up because I'm not 100% sure what the proper technique to use one of these things is. And
It's basically sinus irrigation.
it is, and it's a nasal douche.
Mm-hmm.
Is the actual product, and so
I call them a netty or something.
Yeah. But as soon as I saw that it's actually a douche, I just started laughing. So now, if you call me a douche head, you are 100% accurate, at least for the time being.
It's never going to leave you. It will never die.
It never will. No, I don't think it will. But yeah, that's been my story these last couple of months, has just been dealing with craziness with the health department. But outside of that, you know me, I'm just a nerd trying to make his way in the universe as best I can. So
And that's just a little bit more than the law can allow.
Well, the laws of physics, maybe. Yeah. Which Dr. Alex is our resident expert on that, so we got that too.
Yes,
Yeah.
I have a question for Dr. Alex about that too.
So you came with stuff prepared. How annoyingly organized. Go on, what is it?
Well, as many people perhaps don't know, you've written some really fine Doctor Who fanfic. And if y'all are interested, Dr. Alex has got quite a number of videos out there where he reads his stuff to you, and he's got his accomplice playing Romana the Third or Fourth, I can't remember.
Yeah, who knows?
Who knows?
The only Romana, as far as I'm concerned now.
Yes, with his lovely Romanian accent, I believe. It works very well for Romana. And what the Doctor is facing is a concept called the bulk, meaning, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've got the current cosmological theory, which is we live in 11 dimensions, but for some reason we only participate in 4, so that leaves 7. That's the bulk of the universe right there.
Well, just to put a cosmologist's perspective on things, as a cosmologist and a physicist, we generally believe we live in a 4-dimensional universe. It's the crazy string theorists who think we live in an 11-dimensional universe.
Okay.
That's kind of where I was going.
Is a bubble.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to ask you about this, Dr. Alex, because to me, I think string theory is interesting, but it seems to me that there's like zero supportive evidence to something like that. And it's really just, that's mainly just a wild speculation that's kind of fun. But from what we can observe, a 4-dimensional universe just seems to be consistent with what we can actually observe.
Yeah, this is exactly what my supervisor would always say, is that, the string theorists upstairs, they can play with 11 dimensions, but I'm perfectly happy to play with 4 because it works for everything we're trying to do, which is true. And the problem with string theory, which is the historical problem with it, is that string theory has so many degrees of freedom in its theory that the problem is not that it can't predict anything, it's that it predicts everything. You can tune your parameters and get our universe out of it, and any other universe you fancy. This is the problem. If it can predict everything, it doesn't predict anything. And
unless it predicted everything perfectly accurately.
Yeah, and we'd have to see all the other instances of universes that aren't ours to be able to back it up as well, which is kind of impossible because by definition we're kind of sealed in to our universe. But anyway, that's not the point. The other point is that I've forgotten it because I just did a massive aside. What was I going to say? Oh, I can't predict things. Yeah, that's the problem. So it hasn't made any unique predictions about even our 4-dimensional universe that we exist in that has not been... that does not exist within the existing 4-dimensional relativistic descriptions. Yeah, so that's where it's falling down. If it could predict something, anything that our current model hasn't predicted, and that we've detected somehow or seen evidence for, suddenly we're well on the path to believing in string theory as the next step, and it may well be, but right now we have no evidence of that.
This makes me very chuffed because in mathematics, we work with the real numbers. That's the numbers that you use to measure everyday events. You have to use different number systems to work with electricity, say. But there's another system that's sort of piggybacked on the real number system called the hyperreal number system. Now, the way to imagine it just in a very simple way, is it's an extension cord. So you got a lamp, it doesn't reach the wall socket, you pull out your extension cord, there you go. And the thing about the hyperreal number system is it's every result you derive in that system holds for the real numbers. So it's a way to step outside the real numbers, figure out what's going on, you come up with a result, and then show, and it can be shown easily, relatively, that your result holds for the smaller system, even though you weren't working with it. You're working with a larger system to prove something about the smaller system. Well, things have had progressed so far in the hyperreals that they are coming up with answers to questions that cannot be reformulated back into the real numbers easily. You could do it.
Yeah, exactly. This is where string theory is falling down, because they haven't done that. They haven't worked in the string theory and come up with some extra thing or describe something better or more elegantly or any sort of window extra on the four-dimensional world, yeah?
Yeah, so in mathematics, they're doing work that the craziest cosmologists can't do, so I'm a little chuffed about that.
Yeah,
that's my tribe.
The cosmologist and the string theorist, both of them are. There's not this cross communication there is with what you're talking about. Now this is going beyond. I'm not a mathematician, but is what you're talking about things like quaternions? They call them octernions.
Quaternions and octernions are not at all that. That is something else entirely. Quaternions is a way that you can map motion, and in fact, it works a little bit better than three-dimensional vectors. Exactly how, I can't tell you. I never did master quaternions. I never even saw the oct system until after I was out of the whole deal. Hyperreal is something else entirely different. And on top of hyperreal, you have surreal. And the surreal number system is so big that there is not a bigger system that you can extend out of the real numbers. But the problem is that one is so weird that very few people work with it.
Fair enough. You've gone way outside my area of expertise. The only one I grasped at quaternions.
Oh, that's okay. I feel like I'm like, I should be just sitting back at the kids' table now, so I'll just shut up.
I went to this is what you do as a physicist. I went to 4 years running this conference in Sicily, where it was basically 10 days of drinking a lot of wine, eating a lot of Italian food, and going to some lectures and stuff. But one of the things I did was for 3 of the 4 years, I acted as the secretary for one of the speakers there, Michael Duff. Michael Duff is actually one of the granddaddies of 11-dimensional string theory. He's overlooked by, I always forget his name. Who's the famous? Is it Green?
Green?
Say again?
When I think of string theory, I think of Michio Kaku, honestly. That's...
Oh, no, not him. He's forget. No, I mean the real guys who were at the beginning of as Connor, the guy who's always quoted has gone out of my head right now. But Duff was basically doing the same work at the same time and got completely overlooked, and he's a little bit miffed about it, I think. But the other guys, the more famous guy's name will come back in a minute. But the point is, I think he was doing this for the kind of reasons you're saying. He was doing a lot of stuff with these quaternions and octernions and looking at the patterns of structures of number systems and how they interrelate to each other. And I think he was trying to eventually maybe do an end run and come round to describing our universe from a string theory perspective. But I don't know. It was I could tell you the name of these things because I spent 3 years writing down everything he said in a lecture, but I still don't understand what the hell he was doing.
Yeah, and part of the problem is if string theory merely requires heavier mathematical machinery to work, historically, that will take 50 years. That Riemann comes up with some new method of working with numbers, and the mathematicians pat him on the back, and everyone else says, well, you just wasted your time. And then 50 years later, Einstein uses it, and suddenly it's not useless anymore.
As long as that 50-year gap between Riemann and Einstein, yeah?
I can't remember if it's exactly 50. I believe it's around 50. It's the canonical time distance, if you will, between how long it takes a mathematician to come up with something important and physicists begin to use it.
Yeah, I wonder if Riemann was still alive when Einstein started to use it or not.
I can't remember. Perhaps 50 it's arbitrary. Like it used to be, how do you know a novel is a classic? well, if it's still read 150 years after it was first printed, it's a classic. Well, that works pretty well until you realize that some of the later Victorian works were being considered classics, even though at the time they were only 100 years old, like Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
But the main idea is there's got to be a period of time where the original work is taken out of its original context, and it's still enjoyed by other civilizations that are essentially alien to the original civilization.
Well, that would depend on the type of media you're talking. Well, no, that's actually because that kind of fluctuates with the type of media you're talking about. Like, so for film, you would say a classic film would be something that's more than 20 or 30 years old and holds up, as we would say, because the story, the acting, the characters and stuff is still compelling, even though the world is very different today than it was 20, 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, with films, it's much shorter, and same with TV. And I'm not even sure now that the 150-year estimate even holds to this day, because it was just an estimate. It was unscientific. It was just the number that was floated around some odd years ago, and they may have changed that number since. And from what I understand, there isn't a lot of care and concern about literature for what it is. And instead, it's been replaced by, just how Marxist are you, young man, young lady? So it may not even be an issue.
What you reminded me of about the age of the time gap until things become a classic is that I've, of course, as I'm sure you're aware, in fact, I know you are, you've been watching it. I've been sticking up the Kraken Wakes by John Wyndham. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now that's from 1953, so we're talking 70 years ago, and that his works are generally regarded as classics now, and he's normally mentioned in the same breath as H.G. Wells. H.G. Wells and John, they are very much comparable, and people often do compare them favorably with each other. So I think, the time frame for classic books has definitely shrunk from the 150.
There's a kitty
in the way.
Large kitty.
Get out. There he goes. As I was saying, so do you agree, old media guy, that it seems to have contracted as well?
And one of the things I am happiest about in terms of literary media is, in my lifetime, science fiction has gone from that crap over in the corner that those weirdos write to this can be just as good as anything else that is written. It all depends on the quality.
Well, and I'll say this for the classic thing, because I think with science fiction, that timeline is definitely shortened. I don't keep a lot of books on my shelf behind me. I'm not much of a reader because I'm dyslexic, and you see I turned on my camera. Because one of the few books that I do have, and I very, very treasure this book, I've had it for a long time, is the Foundation trilogy. You can see it's dog-eared and everything. I've had this for a while. This is a 1951 print, I think. But this is this is a classic. But it's it's nowhere near a century old yet. So it's but people I mean, Apple TV is trying to make this into a series now. I can't wait to see if they do it, but
they'll screw it up if they do.
I don't know. Have you seen the trailer for it?
No, I've stayed away because when I was in my, late teens, early 20s, I read the original trilogy and I thought, well, this is pretty good. And then I read the sequels and went, whoops, I need to read the robot novels first. So I went back and read those and then continued and read everything that he wrote up to Prelude to Foundation. Mm-hmm. And Prelude to Foundation is probably his most interesting novel because...
I have that one that sits on my shelf right next to the Foundation trilogy there.
Yeah, that's the one where he was dying when he wrote it and he knew it. And for a long time, he had been one of those rationalists who just sort of waved away any possibility of life beyond death. But in that novel, you can see him hoping that there is something more. He was growing. And I hate to say this, but it takes pain, it takes suffering for us to grow. I wish it weren't the case, but it is so.
Right.
So you can actually see him going beyond the old Isaac Asimov boundaries, where everyone who agrees with him is just the smartest person in the galaxy. And he's starting to be a little bit more conscious of the fact that there's life and there's death and there's tragedy, and he can still write a good book out of it. That was one of my favorite books.
if I can confess my shame, I've read a lot of Asimov and Arthur C. Clarke, but not many of their larger ones are actual novels. It was I read them all as a kid as well, so I was raiding the local library and getting all of their short story compilations out, and I've read a lot of their short stories, but I've read a few of Arthur C. Clarke's longer novels. Rama, for example.
Yeah,
In
Rama.
fact, all three of the Rama ones I think I read, but and the Asimov, unfortunately, I don't think I've unless was I Robot fully novel length?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
that
it's
one.
novel length, but it's an anthology of short stories with linking.
Yeah, even that doesn't count. Yeah, I was mostly reading short stories with him, so I still had to get to them. But on the plus side, at least I have something good to read still.
And the good news also is Asimov is a better writer than Clarke. And I don't mean scientific ideas or any of that. I just mean when I read Rendezvous with Rama, and we haven't gotten to Rama yet, and we're dealing with his idea of where relationships are going to go in the future, I go, oh man, this is male fantasy 101 here.
I know, it's painful.
It is.
He was. Yeah, I agree. Asimov was had a much better human eye. He could do characters better.
And robots. His concepts and how robots should work really struck me as interesting, because if someone were to start writing about robots now and they've never read Asimov, they could probably do a pretty good job. Well, Asimov was writing in the 40s. Who was thinking about robots in the 40s?
Real quick, I don't mean to interrupt, but I got an important call I got to take for scheduling some stuff for the medical stuff. I'll be back in a few minutes, but I'm going to be muted out for a minute. And then all right.
We're not going anywhere.
So we have a couple of messages here. Potato Revan's asking how Anti-Trekker's holding up, and unfortunately we got to that when he's on the phone.
An awkward time to get that.
Yes.
I assume he's holding up with a stick or something. I don't know.
And then Karaga Knight says, hello, everybody. Viva Karoga. And the Zamiel says cat, because that was quite a cat that walked across.
Yeah, of course. So I'm glad you're here, because you're much better at this monitoring the chat than the person who's supposed to be running it.
I think with my live streams, the one redeeming feature I have as a host is I pay attention to the chat. Yeah, people like Anti-Trekker do a much better job of speaking than I do. So I try to make up for that by watching the chat.
Yeah, I'm too stressed thinking about just keeping us talking and going to read through the chat. And now I've just got glued into the chat and going, oh, words. And it's distracting. Well, I'm sure there was something I was going to say, but then Anti-Trekker threw me by running away.
Let's think of something clever to say.
While he's away.
While he's away.
It's gone completely out of my head. I had something clever, and now it's vanished like an old oak table.
So we were talking about classic sci-fi and how long it takes to become a classic, and that 150-year estimate, which was non-scientific to begin with, is shortening for everything. And science fiction literature is no longer completely in the literary ghetto. I imagine.
Sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
That was the thing I was going to talk about. That was when you talked about the ghetto. I remember, and you already pointed out that I am so much younger than you and Anti-Trekker.
Shut that up.
Yeah, I'm not that much younger, but I remember it being in a ghetto science fiction literature as well as all the other media when I was a kid, and it pissed me off. And one of the things that really pissed me off, and this is reasonably recently, sometime in the last 20 years, 25 years, Margaret Atwood, was that Handmaid's Tale?
Yeah,
that's what I thought. Margaret Atwood was continually saying, I'm not a science fiction author, because she didn't want to be associated with that genre and that area of literature. And I was just that always pissed me off. So you are a bloody science fiction author, not my favorite, but you are one. You cannot go running away from your own output and then try and say it's not. I mean, Children of Men is a science fiction film. We've all seen it now. I mean, you can't go around claiming not to be something you clearly are because you don't feel it's up to your standards. I mean, God, it really made me, as you can tell, I was slightly annoyed by that attitude.
Well, I have a little sympathy for her position because in the 70s, if you were writing science fiction, you were ghettoed and you were usually one of those bearded men who were rationalists and could solve every problem in the world from their armchair, but would never implement their solutions. And usually wrote about characters just a lot like them, but getting more babes. And it really was annoying. I mean, the
Yeah,
bad
no, I can
science
see.
fiction. Oh, there was a really bad novel I got from the public library 30 plus years ago. I wish I had it because it was so amazingly bad. Where
Yeah.
it begins with this hot woman looking for help from a starship captain. And once she finds the starship captain, he starts answering all of her life questions, just tossing off the answers left and right. And she had a character, she had a will and a drive. And as soon as he starts giving her the secrets to life, just over his shoulder, oh, this is what they should do. Oh, this is what she would say, well, yes, you're right. And she started to diminish as a character and just become a cipher. And I went, oh my gosh, this should be in a psychology class. Everyone sees what's happening here except the author.
I know. It's funny by contrast because you reminded me of the thing I'm sticking up right now, and you're aware of it because you're looking at it too. But although it's 1950s, it's 1953 when it was written. The Kraken Wakes. The dynamic between oh God, I've forgotten the character names. The two main characters in the book, who are both the names have gone out of my head, but they're a husband and wife team. Yeah.
So what I miss?
Oh, we just got onto the ghettoizing of science fiction and how it pissed me off when certain authors, Margaret Atwood specifically, distance themselves from being science fiction writers when I basically throwing the entire genre under the bus. And we were discussing why that arose in terms of attitudes at the time. And we just got onto the terrible types of science fiction that gave it a bad name in the 50s, 60s, where the men were very one-dimensional, but also I guess a bit like the SJW women characters they've been producing soon. So perfect guys who knew all the answers.
Right.
And I was just about to talk about another one where that wasn't the case, but Old Media Guy, back me up. What were we talking about?
You were just about to tell us about the husband and wife characters from Kraken Wakes.
Yes, and I can't believe their names have gone on. Oh, Phyllis. Phyllis is the wife, and I've forgotten the husband's name. But he's essentially the main narrator in the story. But what and this is where, bad science fiction, has always, I think, had that problem of unrealistic and robotic and stupid male characters. But the good stuff, even the classic good stuff, had a sense of balance. Now, it's got a 1950s attitude about it because it's 1953 when it was written, and it's even set within spitting distance of that date too. But the two characters are clearly a team. They support each other. The husband is fallible and makes many mistakes, which is why Phyllis, I don't remember her name for some reason, Phyllis often trips him up or points out or helps him out. They support each other. And this dynamic running through the entire book is really healthy for a start and very well written. And in many ways, although I'd already was doing it with what I'm writing at the moment, is the kind of dynamic I'm setting up in my Doctor Who stories. I'm basically having the Doctor with basically an equal partner, and they are often at loggerheads and antagonizing each other on many occasions, but they are also supporting and helping each other. And I think that dynamic basically is needed in literature more broadly, and possibly even more broadly than that. But what do you think?
Yeah, we desperately need it because, as others have pointed out, we've got a generation of kids brought up on dystopian literature where only the children could rise up and overthrow the evil old oppressors. And that they took it as gospel truth. And that's the problem with childhood. It's a wonderful time, but you have no idea how badly you're mangling the data you're receiving.
Well, I think.
Go ahead.
Oh no! You saying that makes me think. I mean, I think there's a deeper problem than even just that. Is the whole idea that we're pushing everything into dystopian futures in the first place. That's just become the standard now, and to try and convince people that there is no hope for humanity, that they're basically we're going to self-destruct, we're going to destroy ourselves, and like you said, but the kids, they'll figure it out and make a brighter future somehow out of the ashes of the doom and gloom that is to come.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
Well,
off.
and I think that is a reflection of the attitudes. If you look at the way that the boomers and stuff have dealt with things like climate change, I mean, we're all old enough to remember, and I know that different countries might have had a different experience, but here in the United States, back in the late 70s, early 80s, we were about to go into an ice age. Humanity was doomed. Everything's over, Now, of course, they've changed it to climate change because for a while it was global warming, but that didn't manifest quite the way they were expecting either. And so the idea, though, is that rather than talk about the destruction and devastation and ultimate doom of humanity that is right around the corner, and it's always just right around the corner, how about we just look at ways to improve things? How about we actually just focus in on what are things we can do to make the planet cleaner? Because even if I know there are people out there that deny climate change and all that, or they argue about whether or not it's really caused by man or what. Who cares? Does anybody not want clean water? Does anybody not want clean air? Right? So we can still improve the world even if you don't buy into the global catastrophe stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny, you kind of remind me of Jordan Peterson there, where he's saying, start by tidying your room. And it's essentially what you're saying. Start by sorting your own house out and make sure you've basically got those things in order, and then we'll build up on the rest of the world eventually from there, yeah?
Well, but the thing is that if we, like here in the United States, if we start taking things like recycling seriously, if we start, conserving our power generation or using cleaner energy sources, even if it's just to make it so that the air is nicer and the water is tastier, then that starts cleaning up our environment, and then other countries start imitating that, or they adapt technologies that are developed and all that. And as that spreads around the world becomes a cleaner place. And so if you want to go with the hypothesis that, say, global warming is caused by man, which I don't buy that completely. I think that it's aggravated by man, but I don't think I think it's a natural process. But but it will be somewhat counteracted by all that. And if there is a gradual change that's coming no matter what, which I do think is the case, it can help us better be prepared for it.
Zebulon Pike in the chat adds, people without hope don't fight back.
Yeah.
They need the kids to believe that. And that's true. That's been happening since at least the 80s, where Reagan's reforms actually worked against all of the dire predictions of the pundits. And next thing you know, we were having an economy that was making what Jimmy Carter had look like a joke.
And the funny thing is, the economy isn't because Ronald Reagan was president. The economy was because people believed that the economy could recover under Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan didn't have a magic wand.
Right.
But it gave, like you were saying, hope is a tangible resource. And it's something that we are trying in fiction, we're pushing it away. We're trying to say, oh no, everything is hopeless. And the more we do that, then we're just going to decay as a society. Yeah.
And on top of that, we've got the other side of that coin is the Mary Sue's in fiction now, which is if you're special enough, you can just fix the problem.
Right.
How does that work?
Well, clicking
your heels together, isn't it?
I couldn't hear you, Doctor.
He says
clicking your heels together.
Yeah.
Yes, clicking your heels together. Absolutely.
I think it's an evolution of the chosen one story arc, right? That you have like Neo from the Matrix or whatever. You have a character who is, you are the chosen one. You have to be the key to fixing it. The reason Neo's an interesting character, though, is because he may have been the chosen one, but he didn't know how the heck to be the chosen one. He didn't know what, and so we got to watch him struggle through that. But when someone like, say, Michael Burnham on Star Trek Discovery or one of the other Mary Sues we've seen in more contemporary stuff, it's just everything they do is flawless and therefore always works. And that just becomes boring. And everybody else is still the incompetent, hopeless, the message to everybody that, oh, yeah, the world's going to crumble, but this one person will have faith in, and that person will save us.
Right.
One of the clips that Mecha uses that I really like is the one where they've revoiced Rey in The Force Awakens to say, "I've bypassed the hero's journey,"
Yeah.
which is brilliant.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
And that's the problem, is that they just like, because Ray, I really think, and I don't know, because I wish I could, like, not literally, please don't take anything I'm about to say literally, but I kind of wish I could kidnap J.J. Abrams and give him some truth serum.
Just leave it there. Oh, sorry.
Well, no. I actually respect the guy, but I say give him some truth serum, and I want to get out of him what was his thinking with The Force Awakens, because I think that he was ultimately thinking Rey was going to be the bad guy at the end, and that would have made it make a lot more sense, because Rey is very quick to gain power. She wields the Force like a master with almost no effort. And what were we always taught in the original trilogy? That the dark side is quicker and easier and more seductive. And that would have made for a much more satisfying finale if, in the end, Kylo had to overcome Rey, and Rey was just showing godlike power all the time.
Yeah, but I think you're doing JJ's heavy lifting here. Are you sure he's ever had a good idea for an ending? Did Lost end well? Did Fringe end well?
I'm not saying that his body of work is perfect or anything, but this is a problem too. Any television series that lasts a long time tends to fade away, tends to have MASH is like the only series I can think of that lasted forever and had a great ending.
Yeah, but Lost and Fringe, I think, only had 3 or 4 seasons max, and I think
Fringe, I think, just became too convoluted. And with a series, but the series, and I liked Fringe, by the way. I thought it was a fun show. But
I did too, until the final season, where it just fell apart, and that seems to be his entire way of writing. I don't think he can do an arc. He can't do beginning, middle, end. He can do beginning, fast.
Well, that might be why he only wanted to do the first chapter.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that might have been. I think because I don't think JJ's a dummy. I think he probably knows that his weakness is to come up with a satisfying conclusion to what he's setting up. But if he sets up, so Rey, we're gonna make her like this subtle. She's actually using the dark side, but everybody thinks she's a hero. And then, okay, Ryan, take it away. And then Ryan's like, hey, you know what? Star Wars is like a big toilet. Let me use it for a while. And so then they're like, JJ, can you try to save the series? And
they promised him that he would have maybe, if not final cut, at least his ideas would predominate. And by the end, they were just meeting every day and saying, here's how you're going to change the film.
Right.
And for whatever reason, he didn't walk away. I guess he was worried about his career afterwards, and rightly so. But I wish for an alternate universe where he stood up and said, you're turning this film into a steaming pile of crap. I want nothing to do with it. Change the director's credit to Alan Smithy, and I'm leaving. But that's a fantasy. I don't know what exactly he was facing at the time.
Sorry, go on.
Well, no, but I think the problem is that we, because we want to have an explanation, but the truth is we got what we got, right? And what we got was typical of today's media, is that everything is bad, everyone is bad, but here's our chosen one who's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look at like American television right now. I'm not talking about streaming services, because I think there's actually some good content coming from some of the streaming services out there. But if you look at American television, the networks and stuff, every show they produce it's Star Trek Discovery in a different setting. There's always a perfect person who does everything correctly, surrounded by a bunch of people who need that person to solve their problems for them. And that's just the formula now.
That's very interesting. Zebulon Pike posted when we were back on the climate, does nobody else remember that we have medieval texts that talk about how they grew oranges in England? It's mostly a natural cycle. We need to clean our mess, but it's not the end of the world. And I have to completely agree. I have a personal theory that large groups of people do not migrate to cold climates. So if you look at the climate of England and Scotland now, and if you had a huge mass of people somewhere in Central Europe and they're asking, where should we go? They're not saying, Finland. No, wait, the Outer Hebrides. No, wait. They're going to say Italy and Spain. It's warmer there. Stuff grows in warm weather. Cold hurts. So the reason people moved to England back in the day, and I'm talking before even the Celts, was because it was warmer. And I think that the first time the Thames froze over in winter was the 1320s. So the idea that there would be no change is idiotic. Oh, we're fighting climate change. Well, we're in a world where everything changes every second. What did you want? What do you expect?
Yeah, I think the problem is, and I'm not a climate scientist, I'm only a physicist, but from what I know of the climate
only a lowly physicist.
It's the rate of change. The rate of change is, there's been nothing in recent history, I'm talking like the last 200 years, where you've had this sudden hockey stick upturn in the temperature rises now. And that is because we've just had an industrial revolution over the last 200 years as well. And it's not stopped. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a more marked difference now than there has been in the past. And to quote that things have been hotter in the past, yes, if you look at the long-term thing, it's like a spiky run. But if the spiky run's going up like that, then that's a problem.
Right, that's a different issue, yes. And my first thought would be the sun's heating up. So we can do one of two things. We can put all of our resources into a giant contact lens that won't work, or we can deal with the fact the sun's heating up. And I find it very humorous, darkly humorous, that people who are diehard materialists and Darwinists are suddenly afraid that they are going to die because of climate change. It's like, wait a minute, I thought you knew going in we are just a random bunch of particles that were put together by who only knows what processes. God doesn't, there's no God. And we're going to live and die and that's it. And suddenly you're faced with your own mortality and you're worried. So that's my 2 cents on it. If you know everything's futile and random and useless and stupid, if you know that, then death is like, oh, that's one more random, useless, and stupid thing that's going to happen to me today. Okay.
But media guy, I think that's the one thing that this is another big problem that we have as a society, because we have, I know, Dr. Alex, I know you're not a believer in religion.
Although I was about to say something spiritual.
Okay, so, but which is, the problem though is that we don't have open and honest conversations about this stuff. So we want to we generally tend to assume what the other person is thinking, or just assume they're ignorant because they don't agree with us, right? So and people on both sides of these various debates do this constantly. And one thing that I've always enjoyed is talking to people that have diametrically opposed viewpoints to me. Sometimes we're shouting at each other, but as long as we're friendly about it, that's all good. I don't mind if we're like, I'll have a shouting match with anybody as long as we have the understanding that when we finish, we're still friends.
Yeah.
And, but the problem is that rather than having theologians be able to sit down with a cosmologist and actually talk about, hey, let's talk about the origins of the universe for a little bit. And let's actually get into that and figure out, is there room for God in, the physics of the world today and all that? Can we talk about that? But we don't want to talk about that. Instead, we want to just, say, well, God's not a good scientific theory, and you're just an ignorant person who hates science. Or, and you don't say that, I know, Dr. Alex, because if you did, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. But and then on the flip side is, these people, they think science disproves God, blah 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 blah, and any scientist worth their salt knows you can't prove or disprove God. But at the same time, some scientists think you can use something like string theory instead, and it's like, but you don't have any more evidence for string theory than you do for God. So it's like, what
exactly? You're saying there are some acts of faith in science, and that's absolutely true.
Right?
You believe, or you hope. That's maybe they're the same thing. That the thing you've guessed might be right, and then you try and pursue it.
But I think the problem there.
Go on.
No, because you tell, and you're the expert on this, Dr. Alex. So science to me at its core, and I know agnostic is a scientific term. It's the idea we're not assuming there is or is not a God. because that's not part of the scientific method. But what we are supposed to do is simply go wherever the evidence points, period. But what we seem to be doing more recently with science is trying to come up with an explanation to something without just following the evidence. We're just like, and that's where I think things like string theory are coming from, is we're throwing darts out there and just trying to see what sticks.
Well, they're trying to find. Okay, this gets very abstract and more difficult to. So they're not trying to prove that that light from that big star up there came because it's fusing hydrogen and helium. That sounds very concrete. What they are trying to do, they are trying to fix something that is really there. They're trying to fix the fact that we've got this massive, complicated, well-described system for describing how particles work, called quantum mechanics.
Right.
And no, let's just leave it with quantum mechanics, or quantum field theory, if you like. And then you've got general relativity, which describes how space and time moves, and planets, galaxies, and all of that stuff, and how it interacts with each other. And never the two shall meet. There's still not a convincing discussion between the two. And that was where string theory came about, first of all. It wasn't just a wild stab in the dark. It was an attempt to find a theory that would explain both of those things together. So there was some justification for looking. I'm not saying they've gone the right way, but they went away for a reason. Yeah.
But let me ask you this, Doug. I know you're a cosmologist, so how well educated are you on the quantum side of things?
Oh, well, I'm glad you asked me that. I'm terrible. I'm really a shit quantum mechanic. Quantum field theories. Okay, here's full disclosure. I was sent off to Imperial University because Queen Mary wanted to make sure I went somewhere good to have a couple of courses at the beginning of my PhD. One of them was in general relativity, and one of them was quantum field theory. Now, the guy giving the quantum field theory lecture was shite. I'm not going to embarrass him if he's watching by saying his name, but he was a bloody awful lecturer, and everyone in the room with me, and these were the real Imperial master students, plus me as a new PhD student who just snuck in because they let me. They were all scratching their heads going, this is terrible. And I found another guy, David Tong, who did a series of lectures online for Cambridge in quantum field theory. And they were much more comprehensible, but I still didn't like it. And what I did, after a few lectures in, my supervisor said, nah, forget it. We'll just use it. We'll just test you on the general relativity stuff. We're using that anyway. You don't really need this quantum stuff. And he was right. The basis of the cosmology we're looking at is scalar fields, and they are a quantum phenomena. They're particle. It is. I did have to use quantum field theory and quantum mechanics in some way as the cornerstone, the first building block in the theories. But then after that, you just ignore it entirely and you deal with everything in terms of general relativity. So I basically am shit at quantum, and I know general relativity well enough to do the stuff I need to do. So that's how I came to be the way I am. So yeah, don't ask me about quantum because I would try and avoid answering questions on that as best I can. Obviously, I'm carrying on conversations with you about quantum right now, and I'm talking even about string theory, which is even more outside of my realm of knowledge. And yeah, I've used it in the books and stuff. And I know about the bulk. I know about 11 dimensions. I know a little bit about the history of how it was developed. Susskind was not the one I was thinking of, but he's one of the granddaddies of string theory full stop, back when it's still 10-dimensional. And Witten! That's it. Ed Witten was the guy who's always credited with modern quantum, modern string theory of 11 dimensions. And Michael Duff was the guy who was doing it. I've looked at the papers. He's basically doing it at the same time, if not a couple of years earlier. And Witten got all the credit and Duff got overlooked. But anyway, the point is, I know a little bit about it, enough to carry on a conversation about it, but I don't know how to do string theory. I'm not very good, if at all, skilled in quantum mechanics and quantum field theory. I avoid it like the plague. And I can do general relativity in the way I needed to do it. And I'm being cagey on that as well, because I deal with what's called perturbation.
Well, you're not a mathematician. I understand that.
I'm not a mathematician. I deal with cosmological perturbation theory, which is actually kind of like four-dimensional fluid dynamics. But by the way, I was never really good at fluid dynamics either until I had to use it in this context. But yeah, that's if you want to really get to the bones of what I am as a physicist, I'm a four-dimensional fluid mechanic with some general relativity in there because it's four-dimensional, obviously. But
So
I'm not
my
very
car's
good at-
running low on four-dimensional fluids. You're the person to call.
Yeah, something like that. But I know enough to make references to write books in science fiction. There you go.
There you go. You could definitely be an advisor for a Star Trek series.
Yeah, could do that. I can handle that. But not the current ones, because apparently they don't believe in science.
No, they believe in magic mushroom drives.
Yeah.
But I think Doctor Who is more scientifically accurate than Star Trek Discovery at this point.
No, not anymore. I mean,
Well,
it's still,
okay, I
it's still a
haven't
good joke.
watched anything with Jodie, so except for the first episode she was in, so I don't know.
Very sensible.
Well,
But yeah,
I just didn't like it. So
yeah, it's fine. Doctor Who, of course, always has played a bit fast and loose, and I was I've always been on the peripheries of the Doctor Who. I was never massively into it, which is why I'm not employed by the BBC, and I haven't been commissioned in years to write anything, even for Big Finish. I was just never in the in crowd in any way, shape, or form. But even when I was writing Doctor Who for Big Finish, I always tried to make my stories a little bit more hard science than your typical Doctor Who stories, because they were often playing very fast and loose with science, and they were, they nearly were in the realm of pixie dust, yeah. Whereas I tried to make mine more scientifically rigorous. So, okay, the first one I wrote had a weird entity that was really only thought energy, and he basically kidnapped the Doctor and was messing with his mind. So that was pretty fast and loose, because he could do anything in the world of the imagination. But the next two, one was about a world in orbit around a black hole that was persisting into the far future of the universe when heat death was taking everything. And this is all well-known physics and astrophysical concepts. And the last one, the Barren Wastes, was a near future one, 2040. So I was just doing extensions to, well, what if we have run out of fossil fuels? What kind of technologies might we have? We might have gravitational, might have floaters to overcome gravity instead of lifts. It was just like classic H.G. Wells, playing with the ideas of the time, extending them by 30 years. So yeah, I tried to make my Doctor Who grounded in real science. So, but yeah, I agree that modern Star Trek doesn't have any need for science, and modern Doctor Who doesn't either.
Right.
And which book was that? And which book was that? Could you hold it up to the screen?
The ones I was just talking about.
Isn't that your newest book?
Well, actually, yeah, okay. They were the Big Finish ones. I was going to have to run to the other the other bookshelf, pull my 3 Big Finish ones out of the bookshelf. But yeah, okay. The 3 I was talking about.
Pimping the book sales.
You bet. Doctor Reads the Doctor by the Doctor, Regenerations Past by Dr. Alex. So it's his collection of early work, and you've got the first Doctor, the 4th, 7th, and 8th. So Hartnell, Tom Baker, McCoy, and Paul McGann, if I recall correctly.
Absolutely right. And there's also one mystery Doctor that was a proposed future regeneration that we didn't know exactly when it was, but sometime after all the old ones. But yeah, it's basically mostly it was written. Most of it was written before the relaunch in 2005.
Yeah.
Have you considered doing original sci-fi work?
Yeah. Funny you should say that. When I started writing the Big Finish Doctor Who stuff, I didn't want to be writing Doctor Who stuff. I wanted to write my own stuff. And in fact, okay, small history of Alex. So the reason I started writing Doctor Who is because I was at uni with John Binns, who was the editor of the 3 volumes that I was in. And we shared a house together with another good friend of ours, Hughes, also a writer in the same series. But basically, we all knew each other. That's how we ended up with this job. So yeah, nepotism rules across every area of Doctor Who and literature and life, it would appear. But anyway, I was writing stories that were not Doctor Who, and John was kind enough to be publishing them in his Doctor Who fanzine back in the day when we were all still at uni. So yeah, I wanted to write my own stuff, yeah? And then I got drawn into writing Doctor Who. And to be fair, I did bust out a bit. So even in this, the one that Old Media Guy just read out, there are 2 stories in here which are basically barely Doctor Who stories. There's one, There's one called The Circle of Life, which is one of the companions I wrote for one of the Big Finish stories, doing her own adventure. And that is okay. So it's linked because it's a companion, but it was basically a straight sci-fi story. It had nothing to do with Doctor Who. And then I wrote there's another one snuck in here, which is her companion in that story's story. So it's even further from Doctor Who. And that is just as close as I've come recently. And recently, I mean 2008, 2009. That's as close as I've come to writing a straight, hard science fiction, very much in the vein of Arthur C. Clarke or Isaac Asimov. And I only recently, when rereading this, realized that's what I did. I don't think I even entirely deliberately did it, but I wrote this very straight exploring space in the near future sci-fi story. And it really, reading it back, apart from the modern nods to things like Richard Branson, SpaceX, and all of that sort of thing, it's very straight down the line hard sci-fi. So yeah, I did want to write my own stuff that wasn't Doctor Who to bring me back to the actual answer. But I somehow ended up being dragged in, and now I did stop writing for a long time. And the only reason I started writing again was because I ran out of material to do for reading to the camera for those Doctor Who stories, the past ones I read for Big Finish. And by the way, there's so many things to say. I only did that because of you, Andy Trekker, because you told me. Thank you. You told me that you were dyslexic. And I thought, well, if I read my stories, then he won't have to read them. It actually says that in the blurb on YouTube, that I did this because Andy Trekker has trouble reading my stories, so I decided to read them to camera. So you helped kickfire me back into at least looking at stuff again. And when I ran out of stories, I'd by that point already started to work with Eon, my editor and best friend, and I'd run out of things to work with her with. So I had to write some more stuff. Doctor Who seemed to be the most sensible thing. And the final reason why I went back to why I went back to writing Doctor Who as opposed to doing my own stuff, if you like, is because I was pissed off with how bloody slipshod, shoddy and awful the stuff the BBC were pumping out, or specifically Chimbal was pumping out. And I just thought, back to what you were saying before, we can't just sit here whinging about things being terrible. We have to make it better. And if I was thinking this is terrible, I must also be thinking I could do it better. And if I could do it better, why aren't I? So I did.
See, I like that. The only problem is that when you're working with an established franchise like Doctor Who, obviously you can't take over the Doctor Who franchise and just have it be Dr. Alex's Doctor Who. As much as we did. Well, you know what I mean.
I know.
It's like officially you couldn't do that.
Yes.
You know, and so, which I don't know. How are you doing with your book sales, by the way?
Well, there are sales. Every so often, a few pound appear in my bank account. Oh, somebody must have bought one. Or some over this period of time. They come through every quarter, I think, and so money's dribbling in. But I never did this to make. I never. Okay. I think one of the reasons I got turned off writing initially was when I hit my big time. It was being published by Big Finish, and getting paid for the stuff. It was only one-off payments. I wasn't getting royalties, and I knew I was never going to be a millionaire or become rich off the back of this. And I think that was the wrong reason to go into writing it in the first place. Sure. Now I'm writing it for not just my pleasure, but partly my pleasure, but also for anyone who I just want it to be out there so people can enjoy it. Right. And yeah, I'm never going to be a millionaire off the back of this. If that's what
are you self-publishing now, or are you publishing through a house?
Well, essentially, you're right. I'm self-publishing now. I mean, the Big Finish stuff was published by a recognized publishing house, Big Finish. Right. This is because I discovered the wonders of Amazon, where they will publish your books for you for free. The sale covers the printing costs. There is no cost in putting it onto Amazon Kindle, is how I started. So I put some stuff on Kindle years ago as an experiment, came back to look at it and discovered they'd suddenly added a paperback option to it. It's like, what? So I can stick stuff on there and they'll make it a paperback automatically. By the way, I can't say a word. I'm under a confidentiality agreement, but I will have some more exciting news in the near future that is related to what I'm talking about right now, but I can't say a damn thing about it. But watch this space.
Oh, now you jerk.
I legally apparently can't say anything about it. So I didn't even say anything then.
Oh, wait. But no, because like there's I've always had this fantasy about writing my magnum opus, my version of the Foundation trilogy kind of thing. But I never knew where I could get started with that. So the Amazon thing, I like the idea, just to get it out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've been so trying to encourage people to do exactly. It's not like I don't want anyone else to do this. I wish people would do this. I mean, the world has just opened up for everyone. Anyone can publish there. And I wish I could talk about what I'm not allowed to talk about, but I wish people were. I don't think people are using it as much as they could do for a start. It's there. People are getting it published through any other means. I've seen Rabbi from Another Planet, Ziyu Levetkin. He seems to have got his graphic novel published through some essentially self-publishing means, but I can kind of tell that it's going to be costing money. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's gonna be in some way a bit more of an imposition and a drain on you if you go through this route. And I've never looked at that sort of thing myself, really. I was happy to stick stuff on Kindles and ebook because that was free. When it suddenly became available as a paperback, I was like, oh my God, well, that's it. The publishing industry is dead. Amazon have killed them all. And if I could talk about the final thing, it's the final nail in the coffin.
Is it that it's dead, or is that it's evolved to where it's no longer exclusive?
Yeah, it's that. But I think they're going to slowly lose their market because Amazon will just do everything for you. They won't market it. That's the only thing a publishing house has an advantage of. Yeah, they have a marketing machine.
Oh, so you're saying the publishing house industry is dead?
Yeah,
It's not like you're saying you're just saying like print is dead. It's like
no. Print is not dead. Print now belongs to Amazon, but luckily, by the way it works, everyone. So right. Print now belongs to Amazon and everyone, as long as Amazon keeps doing this. But the publishing houses and the industry, they're dead. I can't. If they're still moving around, it's just a corpse twitching.
Well, that's a very vivid picture there. Thank you, Doctor.
You're very welcome.
See, my problem is that I can come up with stories. I'm not very good with some of the detail stuff. Like when doing creative writing, I always have these great overarching ideas, but then I always have difficulty focusing in on just telling day one, as opposed to what's going to happen over the first millennia.
Yeah.
I cheated. So this is a novel. Yeah.
Okay.
Old media guy can do his
The Doctor Reads the Doctor by the Doctor, Season 12. It's the retelling of Jodie's first season if Capaldi had survived.
Basically, yeah. So this is a novel. This is 264 pages. This is not, it's not incomparable with something like the first Foundation novel, yeah?
No.
I don't know how many pages the first Foundation.
It's universe sprawling. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But the point is, this is a chunky little book. It's not massive. It's not Game of Thrones size, But I'm saying the cheating because I wrote this as a Doctor Who series. So every chapter is an episode, and I'm much better. If I'm better at anything, I'm much better at writing short stories than I am at writing a novel. It's not that I can't write a novel, but I prefer short stories as a format. Yeah. So this is a series of 12 short stories. I would focus on, if you're having trouble starting, what would the first short story be like if I was telling a short story in this universe?
That's actually, I liked it. So yes, by the way, the Foundation, how many pages did you say your book is? 264. 264. That is actually longer than Foundation. The first Foundation book is 227.
Whoa. Of course, I know. I don't know how many words are up a page. I should probably do it. I did do the word count. I think it's 72,000 words. I think.
Yeah. I don't know how many words it is. I just at least in this copy that I have right now, it's 227 pages to the end of Foundation.
They're probably comparable. I imagine, really, they probably are about the same size. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like, well, I could tell you, like, if I was doing it, I was thinking about that too, kind of like how they break it up in these streaming platform shows. Like, you look at The Expanse and stuff like that, the way that they break up these novels into episodes, and I like and I'm not going to tell you my whole concept because then you'll steal it and make $1 million off of me because you're a much more competent writer than me. But the first episode would be called "The Fall and Rise of Man."
I like it.
And so basically, the very first thing that happens in the story is the end of the world, and then it becomes a survival tale from there. As far as like what happens if Earth is gone tomorrow, but humanity's not all gone, the planet's gone. How do we survive?
Anti-Trekker, have you read much Ray Bradbury?
Very little.
I think you would like his approach with the Martian Chronicles and Dandelion Wine, because I think he had the same problem you have with writing. Is if you asked him to sit down and write a sprawling novel, he'd be like, I can't do it. But I'll tell you what I can do. I can write this person's point of view about this event in a short story, then switch to another character and a different story from their point of view.
Right, and that's kind of that's exactly right. Because like I can see, like I have this character fleshed out in my mind as far as the person whose eyes we see the end of the world through. And I mean, his whole thing, I can see that perfectly, but then like blending that into this larger arcing story, I struggle with a little bit.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Just let each person describe something that they can see, and perhaps their characters meet up, or perhaps you could set up a lot of things. Like it's pretty clear that these two characters should meet each other and get together, but one of them dies, and they never. And she passes his corpse and never knew who he was, and only the readers know that this was a tragic missed opportunity. That's the sort of thing that can be very effective.
I'll have Dr. Alex be my official scientific advisor for all the technology stuff.
Sure, why not?
And then we'll have to have a flat earther in there too, so I can have Darren in there somehow.
Instead of disc world, it's plate world.
Now Darren, I asked Darren about this. He said he thought it would be a little too insulting for him to participate, but I thought it would be funny is if you had a story that was like a Star Trek parody kind of thing, right? You're putting your crew together and you're going on the starship, but one of the crew members is a flat earther on a starship.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
And just like constantly telling people, no, it's all a deception. You think we're in outer space. Outer space doesn't exist. That's all a projection on a screen. And I thought it would be fun, but I understand why if you're a genuine flat earther, you might find that a little insulting. So,
thank you, DJ.
I'm thinking back to my old differential geometry class and wondering if a globe, a sphere, is not flat in force space. I don't remember. That was not a class that I enjoyed. So, because what I remember, of course, is geodesics, which is simply the shortest way to get from point A to point B. And on a curved surface, it's not a straight line; it's an arc. So that makes me wonder: in force space, is a sphere actually flat?
I think it might be, but I need to think about that as well, because this is the kind of pure GR stuff that I'm crap at. I'm not really a relativist in that sense either. I'm not very good at the.
So you're just a crap scientist, Dr. Alex. You should
I should be an inspiration to anyone. That I have gone further than I ever dreamed I could with my limited skills and knowledge, because you don't need to be able to do everything. You just need to be able to do one thing useful and make something out of it. I have worked with people in the community. They're mostly better than I am, but I still did stuff. You can't be a doctor. You can't get yourself your PhD unless you've contributed something concrete that has not yet been contributed to the bulk of human understanding in the field. Anyone can do it as long as you've got a modicum of skill and realize what you can do and then utilize it.
That's true. I was talking with a PhD in math, and the conversation shifted to how do you get on in this field? and he said, make sure you're very good at something. That is better than being good at a bunch of things. Don't be a jack of all trades. Be good at this one thing. And he was right.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be that spectacular thing as well. I mean, that still makes it sound like you have to be this wonderkind at one thing. But actually, no. If you can do something that is practically useful in the field and just know how to do it reliably, that's enough. To be fair, I am doing myself down a lot. I'm so good at it. But I didn't even realize I'd made my first discovery, at least that it was significant in any way. And neither did my main supervisor, I think, because he basically sent me this as a piece of busy work to keep me occupied for the early first chunk of my PhD. And then I found the thing that we'd set out to find. And I found that because I was lazy as well. So I used all my strengths, my laziness, my lack of skills, my wariness of maths. And I did a simplified version of something and discovered something that my second supervisor had been looking for a year and hadn't discovered because he'd been doing it the proper way, which is more complicated. And what I found it by accident because I said, why can't we do blah? I'm not going to bore you with the details, but why can't we do blah instead of having to decompose this thing into multiple chunks? He said, well, actually, there's no reason why we can't use raw perturbations. Off you go, do it then. And then I found the thing. And then I was able to unpack my thing I discovered into my second supervisor's language he was using. And I produced a thing that was like 2 pages long. I said, look, and that's what my second supervisor would have done if he'd managed to get to the end of it. I said, well, take that out of the paper. It's showing off. You're being a dick. Put it in the appendix. And, okay. But yeah, I did. I was not going to throw it away. I wanted that in the appendix. But,
so yeah. we now know that the P in PhD for you was for penis because you were being a dick in your paper.
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I managed to slip two Doctor Who references into. Oh no, it was one. It was one. One geeky internet reference and one Doctor Who reference into the 2 main papers that I produced. Yeah. So the thing I discovered, I called Zeta. I think it was Zeta, Greek letter of some sort. I always forget which one it is. And the subscript was SMTP, which is spatial metric trace perturbation. But of course, SMTP is send mail transfer protocol, as you both know, I'm sure.
Well, I do have a life-size TARDIS in my garage.
Very good. You'll like the second one better then, because that was me slipping in a bit of internet jargon into the thing I discovered. I named it that, much to everyone's annoyance. And the second thing, and one of my collaborators changed this about 3 times, and I kept changing it back without him noticing. In the introduction, I described the space. I described the notation for describing 4-dimensional surfaces, 4 dimensions, as what was it? Yes, I said the italicized Greek indices describe time and relative dimensions in space.
Oh man, you did not.
And it made it into publication. Yeah, well, actually, they both made it into publication, of course, but that one I was particularly proud of.
So Dr. Alex, who later would go on to write "The Doctor Reads the Doctor" by the Doctor, actually published a scientific paper that is now forever in academia that makes a direct reference to TARDIS.
Absolutely.
Nice.
And if you don't want to pay for a journal, you can go and see it on the archive.org because it's up there. And if you're somewhere in the introductory parts of that one on, it's on interacting dark energy. I think it was called Couple Quintessence when we did it. But that paper is up there, and it's in the introductory stuff somewhere in the early pages. And there'll be time and relative dimensions in space. Yes. And it's, of course, in the print version, not that anyone buys print versions, of Physical Review D. Because D is the one that does cosmology. There you go.
Interesting. And when was that published, and where would I order it?
It would that would have been published in 2016. You can't order that. Or you probably can.
Well, what's the point?
Well, it's no one ever buys paper journals. Everything.
Yeah, but if I want to have a copy of Dr. Alex's TARDIS reference for all posterity.
Yeah. Actually,
how do I get that?
You know
all
what?
Right, well, I don't advertise this, but there. I don't advertise this because I put this on Amazon Kindle, not for the reason of selling it. I put it there so I could get a print copy of it. But my thesis, which does contain, I think it still contains that reference, because they were basically the papers stuck together, is actually on Amazon. So you can get my PhD thesis if you want. But I would recommend getting the free PDF version off the archive, because then you don't have to pay for it and you can just print it with a printer.
Okay.
But where do I get it? Do you have the link?
Oh, I can do that, can't I?
Yeah, it's the internet.
Wait, give me a second. Archive.org. Oh, Leiths, that's me.
If we sing the Jeopardy theme song, are we going to get nailed for copyright violation?
Try it. Let's try it. No.
You know, I am doing a Jeopardy game tonight on my channel.
I know.
Oh, what time?
It will be at, I don't know exactly, probably start between 7 and 8 Central Standard, depending on my energy levels.
Okay.
Basically, after I'm done here, I have to take Mrs. Antitrekker to Taco Bell because she wants to try this new taco that has a shell made of chicken.
I've heard of that.
Yes. And, well, you know, she likes doing the keto thing, so that's really, you know, that's a good alternative to having tortilla. So,
Wow.
If you don't mind the grease, yeah.
Can you two keep yourself entertained for a second? For some reason, the internet's going really slow right now.
oh, maybe because you're live streaming at the same time.
Maybe.
So yeah,
we're going to stop long enough for Dr. Alex to go to archive.org and find his paper.
I have there's going to be 4 Jeopardy boards that I'm doing, because I'm going to try to get 3 groups of 3 to come up, and then a final round of the winner from each group.
Nice.
If I can get it.
Yeah.
But I will tell you the category. This is not like easy peasy Jeopardy. This is like, some of these questions are ridiculously difficult. Like, I would dare say some are straight up impossible.
I'll have your link in a second. It's just being dog slow right now.
I don't even think I put my master's degree on archive because it wasn't a thing back then. That's right.
Yeah,
it wasn't a very interesting problem.
Doing everything really recently or incredibly late, as it otherwise is known. Don't tell him. Okay, here we go. Poink. Oh, for goodness sake! Why on earth would you do that? You stupid bloody copy buffer.
Live streams go wrong.
Exactly. I can't believe
the amazing thing is, this is all farce. We had this planned all ahead of time.
Yeah,
we bring it full circle.
Trekker and I came up with it.
It's in the chat, AT. Michael. That's the paper with the TARDIS reference.
It's in the chat.
I don't see it.
I hope it is.
I don't see it.
You posted on some random person's chat.
There it is.
Okay.
Yeah, has it come up?
Yeah, it just popped up here. Linear density. Wow. Yeah, I can't even read that.
Perturbations in multi-field coupled quintessence. Oh, you got to use the word quintessence. That is awesome.
It's quintessence is a model for dark energy. Did I get that right? Yeah, I think I did. Yeah, I did. It's a model, but more importantly, this is interacting dark energy and dark matter models. And this was an extension to the basic version where you've got one species of dark matter, one species of dark energy, where you can have multiple. In this case, we basically
found it.
Two.
Here and throughout the Greek indices, 2 symbols label coordinates running over time and relative dimensions in space. And we use you just go on. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. I don't understand any of the math that I'm seeing here, but I love it.
Yeah, I had to do it.
Yes. Yeah, and I can see it now.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you're doing there.
You do?
Just a bit. I can't do the math anymore, but I recognize it.
I can't do the math anymore. I still have ideas to extend not this but the previous work I did, but I know damn well I'm going to have to go back and redo all of the working I did for the first one before I can extend it, because I've forgotten everything, because that's what happens when you don't use it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But don't worry, math is just like falling off a bicycle. You never forget how to do that.
Exactly what I was thinking. I do know. I mean, in the past, I would stop myself from doing so many things by thinking I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. Any old excuse to not do something. And now I realize, actually, if I put some work in, I can relearn anything. I can redo this. I can do this again. It's not that I will lose it forever.
And you will relearn it faster than the pace at which you learned it originally.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So we trip ourselves up. So our brains are so well wired to stop ourselves from doing things, aren't they?
Well, speak for yourself. My brain, the jury's still out on that. We're doing tests.
It does make you sound like you're brilliant, though. So I'm not wired to stop myself from doing things.
Well, that's actually what that phone call that I got was. That was them scheduling the next. I get to have a lumbar puncture.
What?
Oh God, yeah. I said in chat, I've not had a lumbar. Well, is that the same thing as a spinal tap?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Then I have had it.
Yeah,
it was not pleasant.
Yeah, I understand it's an excruciating experience, and so I get to do that on June 1st.
Oh, good.
The experience itself is horrible. You are right to call it excruciating, but the thing that they may not have warned you about is the after effects. So in the week following, almost a week following, I had to lie down all the time because whenever I got up, I got a splitting headache because there's a pressure drop in your spinal fluid in the spinal column, and that includes the cerebral fluid. Yeah,
right. It's the same stuff.
And as soon as you stand up, that pressure drop gives you a freaking bloody awful headache.
So what I need is some more 4-dimensional fluid.
Yeah, or find something to lie down on. I remember having a party in the garden in that week following, and I had to spend most of that party just lying on the lawn while everyone else had fun around me. I was like, great, fantastic.
Yeah. So thank you for getting me to look forward to it even more. I really appreciate that, Doctor.
I was just trying to warn you so you could get a nice bed.
You know, I was just throwing a doctor by the doctor reads the doctor by the doctor question into my Jeopardy board for tonight. But I'm thinking about taking that off now because you've just ruined.
Damn. Hoist by my own petard.
That's still so yeah. So yeah, they were calling to schedule that, so I had to take that obviously because it's important. We try to get to the bottom of my broken brain wiring, which I also blame you for.
What? How did I do that one?
Well, for one thing, you make me look at these mathematical formulas that hurt my head.
That's fair enough.
Oh, I need to bring up some hyperreal stuff then. That
no, thank you.
Send you over the edge.
It's funny because I tend to I can understand the abstracts behind a lot of that stuff. Like if you actually, you and I could probably have an interesting conversation about relativistic physics and quantum mechanics and stuff, as long as we're not doing any math. I can understand the concepts. But you show me those Greek symbols, and my head hurts. And I think that's partially because of my dyslexia. Because looking at those, that makes it difficult as it is. So then when I'm looking at these symbols and letters and stuff that aren't even part of the English alphabet, it hurts even more. And so it's just that sucks. Because I wanted to be a physicist when I was young.
It's not pleasant, no. I mean, the basic stuff in relativity is about lining up whether you've done superscript or subscript indices on your equations and making them balance. It's all letters, and where you've written them. That's the difficult part of it, and it's. I did not find it easy, and when I first was confronted with it, actually on my master's course, I virtually failed that aspect. I actually aced that exam, but that's because I'd gone away and learnt the questions he always set and learnt the rote answers to them. But understanding the relativistic stuff with that index lowering and raising and stuff was really, really hard. And it was still really, really hard all the way through until I finished, basically.
Yep.
But what does the big backwards E mean?
Which one?
That's backwards E.
Yeah, I don't know. Or is that back? It's not even backwards.
Hang on. I do still have it in front of me. I can probably look it up.
Which
Where are you
page are you on here?
Well, I'm looking at. I still have the TARDIS reference in front of me.
Oh, right. Okay, so not that far. And give me a second.
Yes.
Except it's never going to come up quickly, is it?
Oh, you mean the sigma. That symbol
Oh.
means you add up possibly infinitely many terms. I don't know enough about Dr. Alex's work to know if it's finite or infinitely many.
You're both way ahead of me because this computer is so slow, and I can't even open a PDF. But yeah, it'll be a sum of something.
Yeah, it's a sum.
Come on.
Yep.
Oh, I've got it in front of me now. I can see it. How far down were you?
It's right below where you have your TARDIS reference.
Equation 2.3.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's much more helpful. Yeah. That's a sum over blah 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 blah. It's the stress energy momentum tensor. It's a sum of. Oh right, yeah. It's a sum over the different species of the different scalar fields. I think, unless I'm completely wrong. Maybe I'm completely wrong. Let's have a look. Oh yeah, no, I was right the first time. Yeah, of course it's scalar fields. Yeah, so those it's a sum of the density contributions, if you like, or energy contributions for different dark energy fields. There you go.
Okay.
So there'll be. You're right. There could be any number, but I think we dealt with 2 in most of this paper.
That's a wise move, reducing it to 2 dimensions, because 3-dimensional math.
Yeah, I think we did that because we're extending it beyond a single field and single species.
Right.
We didn't. The formulae are in here, so you can extend it to as many different species as you like. But we just demonstrated it's working with 2 and 2, because that was enough to show it worked, and also to give us results we could compare with potential future observations of large-scale structure in the universe. There you go. That's a brief description of what it was about.
Just a brief, simple, easy, peasy. Yeah.
No maths.
And so, but how long did it take you to come up with this?
Okay, well that one, to be fair, one of the people I was working with, Nelson Nunes, did the single field work. So essentially, I was just expanding his work. So he said, "I've done single field. Now you go away and do multiple fields." So
that's where your laziness comes in.
Yeah. Or my supervisor's recognition of my limitations might be another way of putting it. But yeah, he said, "Right, go and extend his work and make it multi-field." And so that's what I did. And he was right. I did it. We did it. And also I got to work with the original author, Nelson, because we had people in the field generally know each other and get on very well. So it was great to be able to collaborate with him. So we're all authors on that paper. Obviously, I'm first author because it's my paper, and my supervisor isn't a dick, because only a complete dick of a supervisor would gazump his student's paper and put himself at the front of it. You're aware the students are the ones doing all the work, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So before I'm going to have to wrap up here in a second, but before I go, I do have someone here with me that wants to say hi.
Oh,
Hello.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, it's not too bad.
Now, I will guarantee you, when Mrs. Antichecker looks at your math, her head's going to hurt.
Yes, it does.
But now, wait, this is going to be a live reaction here. Read that first line on that page and see if, see if she gets it. Look right here.
It's the line that begins here and throughout.
Yeah. Do you get that reference?
No.
You're not getting. Oh man, she missed the reference. This is in Dr. Alex's PhD paper, and that phrase, "time and relative dimension in space." You don't recognize that?
No, I don't. Sorry.
TARDIS.
Oh, well, he made me get out of bed, so sorry.
We're going to get her chicken tacos now. But anyway, but thank you for having me on, Dr. Alex. I know this was kind of a last-minute thing, but we'll have to do this again sometime soon. It was interesting, even if now my head hurts even more than usual.
I know. I'm really glad you came, because, this has been really a lot of fun. I mean, we don't have to end it now, Media Guy, necessarily, but having the three of us here has been one of the most entertaining and yet informative live streams I've had in a while.
Well, there you go. So I tell you, once I get to working on my great novel, you are going to be my scientific advisor because we got to talk about artificial gravity and survivability in space and all this stuff. I think it's going to be really cool.
Yeah, it sounds great. I'm on board.
All right.
Let me know.
All right. And nice talking to you again, old media guy. You have a great day as well. And anybody that's out there, I'll be streaming in a few hours where we'll do Jeopardy and see if we can, stump everybody, which I guarantee you. But if you were paying attention to this live stream, there's a couple of things that you will pick up, but you had to have been paying attention pretty good. There might be math. So, watch out for that. All right. You guys have a good one.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you, Anthony. And then
Oh my goodness, that was fun.
Yeah, I know. And the fun is still going on because I've not stopped the stream and I don't intend to until you're sick of it. Are you still there?
Yes, I'm looking over your paper, and I really just need to put the paper away now. Put the paper down. Okay, just put it down.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably getting more out of it than I am. Is there anyone else who wants to join?
I'm sorry?
Is there anyone else trying to join us? No, actually, there won't be that many because I didn't widely disperse the. I didn't widely disperse the link, but obviously Anti got it. Anti-Tracker got it. So yeah, what should we talk about now?
Well, let's see. It looks like there's 7 people in the stream watching, apart from you and I. So if you have a topic you'd like us to discuss that is not R or X rated, that has something to do with the current political climate in terms where we are not being forced to take one side or the other for silly reasons, or simply if you'd like us to talk about a beloved TV show or movie, we can take a stab at it.
Yes.
I recently saw a very bad movie. Would you like to know which bad movie I saw?
I'll save my thing for after. Tell them about the terrible movie.
I watched Rambo Last Blood Extended Edition on Amazon Prime.
Right. Okay. Is that the recent one?
Yeah, that's the recent one. It's his 5th Rambo movie. You go in knowing it's probably going to be crap, and that's what I did. And the film suckered me because the first half is actually very good.
Oh.
If I had been lucky enough to have been a script doctor working on that film, I would have said the first half is not going to be changed. It's wonderful. And then something happens in the second half and it becomes BS. And that's what I would have stopped in its tracks. I would have said, look, you got to change these characters in this situation and do this, that, and the other. Because it became an oversimplified glory of male aggression and power and all that stuff that Stallone tries to project in his characters and does very, very well indeed. Yeah. But it became so stupid that I'm going, oh, why did I watch this? The first half was good.
This is... you and I both know the power of having an editor. Editors are so important.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of these scripts don't go through a second pair of eyes or brain.
Well, it almost seemed like Stallone gave up. I mean, it looked like they spent quite a lot of time on the first half of the movie and something happened. And with movies, it's a tremendously difficult and expensive process. And it may simply have been, hey, look, we've got this money. If we start shooting in 6 weeks, can you finish the script? So they finished the script with whatever malarkey they wanted to throw in, and there it was. It could have happened.
Yeah. Time, that would make sense as an explanation, that there's some sort of time constraint that suddenly tripped them up entirely.
Plus, since Stallone is in it, it's going to make money.
Yeah, I know.
And there is that temptation that most of us have never faced, which is, whatever I do, I'm going to make a lot of money. And
exactly.
When it comes to that temptation, it's very easy to say, well, I really would prefer my weekends free and not to work so hard during the week. So if we make crap films, that's fine. I'm making money no matter what I do.
Exactly. Thank goodness I will never be facing that temptation. I'll be producing awesome quality material forever because I'm never going to be rich enough to make that mistake.
I have a slight existential crisis going as far as this channel is concerned, because I decided I was going to try to make some videos and see if I got any people to watch them. And I got some very nice people to watch them, interesting people. About
Yeah.
20 were watching my stuff. I thought, well, that's very good. But part of what I went into with YouTube was finding out, could I monetize it? Because I'm on a fixed income and that kind of sucks. So that was one of the goals. So I figured I had met some goals because I was interacting with interesting people. But the goal as far as making any money in the channel, no, that wasn't even close to happening. So I thought, well, I've got one more video in me. I'm going to make the best of Brioni Corrigan from Goes Wrong. And that's going to be my fun video. And it probably will be my last for a while, except for live streams and such. So I made it and put it out there. I'm like, well, hopefully people will watch it. And within a month, it had taken off. And to the point where people are saying, oh, well, we'd like another one. So, oh, well, I'll make another one. I will deal with this other actor within the Goes Wrong community who's also very funny. They're all very funny. And so I'm just cherry picking which ones I want to do based on the videos I would care to make. And next thing you know, I'm getting 5-figure views for these things. And so if you look at my channel, it's really kind of funny. You've got these videos with 40,000 views, 30,000 views, 10,000 views, 20.
No, I have the same thing. I'm not saying I wouldn't want my channel to be monetized. I mean, if I top that 1,000 subscribers, which is one of those things you need to do, that would be grand, and I would very much like that. But I have the same thing that happened to you. I've got 2 series, well, 1 series really. Stephen Moore reading the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, all 4 of the first 4 of the books. And those have got tens of thousands of views, over 10,000 views in many cases. Way more than anything else I've ever produced. And this next thing I think of that would be about 700 odd for one of the first sword fighting review film that I did. But yeah, there's a massive drop off, and then you're into tens, maybe 100 if you're lucky for most of the other stuff. But it is annoying in a way that my most popular stuff is somebody else's work. So Stephen Moore's reading that. The one that's going up right now, the Kraken Wakes, John Wyndon, also read by Stephen Moore, is clocking up views at a far faster rate than any other series I've produced since the last Stephen Moore one I did. But I think I can see what your conundrum is. Should I go entirely down that route? Yeah.
Well, I've done a video now for each of the main actors. I've got a few requests for a video for the supporting players, but the problem is there's not much material. So I have 1 or 2 options, basically 3 options. There's always another option. One is to do a video just with the others in the Gilligan's Island terms and the rest. Okay, if I do them individually, they'll be very short, so it probably makes sense to put them together. I could do that. But the problem is once I do that, I'm done. There's nothing more to do unless I wait for them to come out with a second season, and I did not want to be a parasite about this. I simply wanted to say, here's some fun stuff.
Yeah.
So option 2, this is what I'm leaning towards, is a video called Made You Laugh, and it's going to have stuff from all different sources. So you'll be watching a clip from Goes Wrong, and then suddenly it's a clip from the Marx Brothers, and then suddenly it's a clip from Martin and Lewis. And it's all stuff. And Bleak Expectations, the radio play, which is about the funniest historical comedy since Blackadder.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that, all strung together, hopefully in some sort of coherent order. Because it seems that the niche I found is people who are taking a break from work and they've got their phone. It's like, well, I got 5 minutes out here for a smoky treat or what have you. And so they watch one of my videos and then they go back to work. And I think, well, that's a nice niche to have, because I'm offering people a break from jobs they really don't like or situations they don't like. And I'm more than happy to spend my life doing that for people. But
No,
so yeah, it's either more that's strictly that, or that with some other stuff, or something else entirely that I haven't thought of yet.
I think you've got the right idea there. The flip side for me is that I didn't resent making these series that are popular, but for most of the time, almost every time I've done it, it's because I was between the stuff I'm making, and I'm still going to always, even though they're more popular, they're always going to be the stuff I pump out between the stuff I'm making. So I I don't feel guilty about it anymore, and I don't let it distract me. It's not it's still not my main thing. It may be my most popular thing, but it's not my main thing. So I'm going to continue to produce my own material, and that's the only reason I'm pumping these things out at the moment, is to fill the space until I've written the next stuff of my own. Yeah.
Ellen's, I'm not sure I can pronounce this. Ellen Sminus. I love Bleak Expectations. Have you found the Penny Dreadful radio series? I have not. I will look into that, because Bleak Expectations, it's wonderful, but about season 4, though, it crashes. Like the writers lost the plot. And so you can't listen to all of it. And I've been looking for something new, so maybe Penny Dreadfuls is it. I'll have to look it up. And Ellen, have you heard of The Goon Show, may I ask? Which is, if you want to know what living in Britain was like in the 50s, The Goon Show is actually not a bad way to do it.
I first encountered The Goon Show by reading it. My dad was well into The Goon Show as a kid, and he had 2 or 3 Goon Show scripts, annuals. They were sort of that sort of A4 size, and they were at my grandparents'. So whenever we went to my grandparents', I'd always be reading the Goon Show scripts. It was brilliant. And then eventually, years later, I end up with the Goon Show on tape, and I think my brother actually had them. And then we listened to them properly. But yeah, it was fantastic, even as a written script.
Ellen, it's Ellen. Ellen71 from Discord. Dr. Alex, I'm not trying to suggest anything, but if I were you, I'd send her the StreamYard's link.
Oh, okay. Oh, give me a sec. How do I do that?
Well, that's it. Let's see here. I might be able to do it for you if I open up Discord again. I turned it off because I did not want to be distracted, because I'm very good at being distracted.
You have my permission to send it to her.
Okay. If there were a U.S. Olympic distracted team, I would be on it, although I probably wouldn't make the flight because I would be so distracted by something in the airport.
What do you want, Puss?
All right, Alan, I have sent you the StreamYard link in the Discord if you care to join us, and if you don't, that's fine too.
I'm keeping an eye on...
Oh, she's mentioning all sorts of good ones. Beyond Our Kin, Round the Horn. I'm sorry, I'll read that again. Yeah. It's a treasure house of radio comedy. I'm trying not to completely geek out here over British radio, because it's nothing like expounding for 30 minutes on a topic that 1 or 2 people know about, and everyone else is going, really? You wasted your life listening to that? It's like, well, yeah, I did. I'm still a fan of Take It From Here. I'm one of the last remaining people who go, oh, Ron, and know what it means. And I'm sorry. And
Gone beyond my knowledge.
I am absolutely convinced that J.K. Rowling heard that catchphrase as a child and used some of that in her interactions with Hermione and Ron. It's not exactly the same, because Rowling is far too creative for that, but I just suspect that there was a hint there that she picked up on that. See, what made Take It From Here so big in the 50s is they were very good at parodying things. They're probably one of the best straight parody shows you could come across in the 50s. Goon Show was wild parody, but they were straight parody. So they were parodying the fact that you would have movies and whatnot with these perfect families with happy couples and all the rest. And so they came up with the Glums, and everything about them was a mess. And Eth was engaged to the son Ron, who was about as smart as Forrest Gump.
Hang on, I don't know what I've done.
Well, can't hear you, Ellen.
Hello, Ellen.
Hello. Sorry. I
go.
just realised I had you running in 2 separate tabs, so I had to just close the other one. It's my first time on doing any of this. So, hello, everyone. Hello, world.
Hello. It's the first time I've ever run one of these. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's all down to Old Media Guy, because I wouldn't have done this if he hadn't desperately wanted somewhere to talk.
Cool.
And that's another topic we could bring up, how weird it is in the 21st century. If you want to talk, the best way to do the talk is to broadcast it.
Yes, it's bizarre, isn't it?
Yeah, I hope sex doesn't go that way.
Well, it would improve my sex life.
So,
honey, we've got 4 viewers. Come on, do something.
Okay,
perhaps you could introduce yourself and tell us what you do, why you're here, what are you interested in?
Okay, right. So, Ellen, I currently live in South Wales. I'm a mechanical engineer. I did 5 years research in, let me see if I can remember the title. The use of ultrasound in the detection of incipient failure in helicopter gearboxes. There you go.
Nice.
I met Old Media Guy on Discord because we're both learning Latin. Or I'm sort of relearning. I did 2 years of it at school. I speak Welsh semi-well. I've been learning for 7 years, so getting on not badly. And I'm here because what else can I do on a Friday night when you can't go out anywhere? And I love radio. I don't have a telly. I've not had a television since 1997. So all of my references are radio. And when
Nice.
BBC 7 started, which is now Radio 4 Extra,
Yes.
it was just heaven. It's great. So there's all sorts of stuff on there. And it's just, yeah.
I think the series I'm pumping up at the moment, the Kraken Wakes, John Wyndham, I think that was Radio 7 one.
Yes, it is on there, yeah.
Yeah, it's a damn shame that they seem to have disappeared or been watered down anyway.
I think they've currently got 13-year-olds picking the schedules for radio for BBC for 4 Extra at the moment because it is dire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I've also got. I mean, I've got a few others that I've. We're just talking about series I do between the stuff I'm actually doing myself, and I've got a couple of other books and radio series lined up that I might use. Some have already done this one, but I might do it better because their audio quality isn't great. Mountains of Madness, read by Richard Coyle, which is really good. Have you heard that one?
No, I've not heard. No, I don't recognise the name. Give me a summary of the plot, and
it's an H.P. Lovecraft.
I thought it might be. Is it the one in Antarctica?
Yes, exactly.
Right,
I probably, it's given that people don't seem to have noticed it, I probably will stick that out as a series once I've got the Kraken Wakes out of the way. Although I have another one I'm planning on doing, which is because it's either audiobooks that I used to enjoy as a kid, or it's radio series that I've come across that are really awesome. So I have another audiobook I've discovered from, apparently it came out in the year I was born, but I obviously got it out of the school library a few years after that. It basically, okay, I'll give it away. Bit spoilers for people who want to know what series I'm going to rip off next. I found, I've forgotten his second name, Nicole Williamson, I think. Basically Merlin from Excalibur reading The Hobbit.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know.
Cool.
So I've got that on cassette coming, and I'm going to transcribe it off cassette and tart it up and make it nicer, and then pump that out as a series and see if it gets copyright struck.
It may not, because there's a John Pertwee radio special from the mid-'70s where he does a dramatic reading of Treasure Island. And I think it only came out on cassette. And I've not posted on the net, but I have wondered if that company is still around to, rail at YouTube for allowing their precious copyright to be violated by, transcribing from a medium that technically doesn't exist anymore to one that does.
I know. Now, sorry, can I leave you in charge for a second, old media guy?
Okay.
Because the cat is going to do something stupid. Oh my God! Right.
Go ahead, Ellen.
If you like John Pertwee, have you listened to the Navy Lark?
I have listened to every episode.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent.
I love that too. Left hand down.
Yep. Oh, I love it. Everybody down.
Everybody down. Crash. Leading Seaman Goldstein here. The glorious land of Wales. Land of my fathers it is.
It was more Irish than Welsh. But land of my fathers.
Yeah, I can't do a good Welsh, but it's as close as I can get.
Yeah, it borders on Indian, bizarrely.
Well, as a kid, of course, if you're interested in accents like I am, you try to mimic it. So friend and I decided to do some Monty Python sketches, and we thought, should we do this in American English? Now it doesn't make sense in American English, so we tried to do it. And a British friend of ours was there and watching. He's from Sheffield, so he's going to tell us what he thinks. And we get done, and I say, well, how was it? He goes, pick an accent. I say, well, you're right. I get what you're saying. I pointed to him and said, yes, but I've heard you sing Guns N' Roses in American accent, though. He goes, well, yeah, that's because that's how I heard it. It's like, that's my point. We don't sit down and read Monty Python. We just listen to them and try to copy them. And of course, we don't get the nuances. We just don't. In fact, in this country, if you ask someone from the North what a Southern accent sounds like, they'll give you a very broad, almost comical interpretation, when the fact there is no one Southern accent. There's accents that stretch all the way from DFW area of Texas all the way to the Atlantic Ocean, and they're all a little bit different. And the Southerners can tell each other apart, just like in the UK. So.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, when I was growing up, just the city I grew up in, you could tell which part of the city people lived by their accent.
Wow.
Yeah, it's more homogeneous. There's a lot more people have moved in, so it's not quite the same anymore.
Well, you know the story about Leslie Phillips in World War II? This is a real story.
No.
Apparently, what happened was I can't remember if his dad was ever around or he died or simply walked out, but it was him and his mom. Mom recognized the kid had acting, singing, dancing talent, and she was working on getting him kid roles. And Leslie he was young, but he was also able to understand, if we don't do this, we're going to be living on the street. So she tries to get him these roles, and the directors, this is in the 20s or 30s or something, the directors were saying, I'm sorry, we can't use him because of his broad Cockney. So not having a lot of money to begin with, she takes him for elocution lessons to get that, hello, I'm Leslie Phillips accent. So World War II comes along, and he's drafted as an able seaman in some boat or other. And all of the other ranks have regional accents, while all the officers have some sort of Etonian RP accent. And next thing you know, it's like, hello, Able Seaman Phillips here, reporting for duty, sir. And they're going, you can't do this, not with that accent. So the story is they made him a sub-lieutenant just because of his accent.
Good heavens.
That's the germ of the joke behind him being the sub-lieutenant that can't do anything. Because he was just promoted instantly. And what can you say to that? But bloody hell, you've made me the lowest ranking officer because of my accent? Mm-hmm. Well, that's what happened. So that was the two of the things about his character in the series were based on real life. One was he just got promoted for his voice. Second was he grew up poor.
Crikey. I didn't I didn't know that at all. Because John Pertwee was...
Sorry, I had no idea Leslie Phillips had been coached into that accent. Is he still alive? Please say yes.
He is.
I think so.
It's amazing because I mean, whenever I mention anyone of any age in my videos, they tend to just die immediately afterwards, which is very depressing for me and no doubt their families as well. But I'm really glad.
So you mention people and they die.
Okay, so
can you repeat the words Kathleen Kennedy for me?
I'm sure I've mentioned Kathleen.
Joking, Kathleen, joking.
I think I've mentioned Jar Jar Abrams several times, but it hasn't had an effect. I think they have to be aged. So I mentioned who did I mention? Early on in my sword fighting films reviews, I mentioned not Bob Anderson, Bill Hobbs. Who's the fight director in the Three Musketeers and the Four Musketeers, the brilliant 1970s one, which had Richard Chamberlain, Oliver Reed, Michael York, I think it was Frank Finlay. Sorry, wrong one.
Frank Finlay.
And they are, and also Charlton Heston as well. They are brilliant. And Bill Hobbs was, I knew him. That's why it was so gutting. So I started doing this series, reviewing various sword fighting films. But I'd introduced it by doing a one-off, talking about his one of his cameo appearances. He's actually in the Three Musketeers. He's the drunken sword fighter who's actually an agent for Cardinal Richelieu, who engages Porthos in a duel and belays him as they're all trying to get to London and Calais and then London. But that's Bill Hobbs doing that sword fight, and I fenced with him at one of the fencing clubs in London. So I kind of knew him, and then within a month of me making that film, he died.
Oh goodness!
And it was gutting, particularly because I didn't know, and someone I was down the pub with, we were talking about this video I've made. He said, "Oh, I saw something in the news recently," and he brought up this article, and it was the obituary, and I nearly collapsed. I was like, "But this cannot be." And somebody else, who was it? It was Stephen Moore, I think. Yeah. As I was producing the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, read by Stephen Moore, midway through it, somewhere through the rest cassettes, he actually died. And I was like, oh God damn it, not again. So yes, I have a bad track record of mentioning aging people and then they die. Just don't do that again.
Who was all right, remember the Clive Marison Sherlock Holmes series? Michael somebody
Michael
was
Williams, who was married
Michael Williams.
to Judi Dench.
Yep. He died right at the end of the series.
Yeah.
Right.
But at least he did get to do every single one of the works.
Yep. They did Hound of the Basket. Go ahead.
So that we were doing quizzes at work, and that was one of the questions I put in the quiz. One of the quizzes I did was name the actors who played Sherlock and Holmes, the only radio series to do the whole lot, to do the whole works.
Yeah.
So, nobody got it.
So when they finally came back and started doing new stories, they had to cast somebody else's Watson, whose name is escaping me, because I don't like his work. He's trying. He's a good actor. I shouldn't be saying I don't like his work, but after Michael Williams, oh my gosh, he was the best Watson ever, I think. And I really value some of the other actors who've done it. So I'm not putting this guy in the pedestal. I'm just saying of all the ways to make Watson human, Michael Williams found perhaps the key, at least for our generation.
I'm just going to look something up because I think you'll like this.
And Nicole Mellett says Tom Baker is the best. I have to agree, he is.
Yeah, I agree. I've seen him acting. I think I stuck it on the Discord thing. He was. I grew up in Bristol, and they filmed one of the series of Doctor Who in the tobacco factory in Bristol where my dad worked. And so we went to pick my dad up from work one day, got out of the car and out of the car because it's an underground car park, walked up into the corridors, and we saw him walking. They were filming him walking along one of the corridors. They were tiled in industrial white tiles on all four surfaces.
Was that the Sunmakers?
I can't remember. I'm terrible. I don't remember these things. But I do remember we knew when it was coming out, and we watched it. And the TARDIS appears actually on the roof of the factory.
That's the Sunmakers.
Yeah,
is that the one that was set on Pluto?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
The first words they utter as they come out of the TARDIS is, "What's that strange aroma or smell in the air?" And of course, we fell about laughing and just went, "It's tobacco."
Yeah, that smell was part of the plot. It was a chemical to keep people cowed and not strike up any revolutionary notes in their barracks. But yes, that must have been hilarious to see. Oh, but he's on the tobacco building. What do you think you're smelling?
I've completely lost track of the stream, on Pluto. I'm sorry, my laptop's given up trying to tell me what the chat is, or indeed show anything at all. So I can only see you on StreamYards. And if anything interesting happens in the chat, do let me know.
Not even sure I can see it. I've kind of given up. There it is. Yes, I've in the wrong thing.
Thank God for that.
And of course, like Ace 2, as Nicole's come back with.
Yeah, Ace was a good character.
Yeah, I like Nyssa.
Yeah, that's what was nice. I have to admit, Turlo did not work for me. I know that Mark Strickson was working his tiny little butt off to make that role work, but it just did not fly for me. And that is one nice thing about getting a little older, is you can finally say, such and such film was bad, but this actor worked really hard, or the character of Turlough was all wrong, but Mark Strickson really did put all of his effort into making it work. Same with Capaldi. Capaldi was, I thought, Dr. Alex, I think you said this, so don't let me steal your thunder too much, but he's the best actor they've ever gotten to play Doctor Who in just terms of acting skill, and then they just gave him junk scripts.
In the modern era, I certainly would say
The modern
that,
era.
And I
Yeah.
know, and rightly so, everyone loves Tennant, and he is brilliant. But
He is.
I think Peter Capaldi is a better actor. They just completely wasted him, increasingly wasted him as it went on. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing. One is because I want to show that you can actually produce Doctor Who with good writing, something that needs to be shown now, I think. And also that they wasted Peter Capaldi. He had so much range and ability to bring so much of the character to life. And also, he was actually, Tom Baker is still my favorite. But do you remember the one where he rescued the child Davros from the middle of the battlefield?
Yep.
When the first time you hear him calling across to Davros, it's actually shrouded in mist. You can't see him at all. You just hear Capaldi's voice saying something. I don't know the line exactly. Something like, "Wait there, I'll come for you," or something like that. But when he said that line, he didn't sound like Peter Capaldi doing the 12th Doctor. He sounded like Tom Baker doing the Doctor. I know superficially he had more of a look of Pertwee about him. But I think somewhere inside, I think Capaldi was channeling aspects of the Fourth Doctor in some of his performances. And that line in particular was like, that could have been Tom Baker saying the line himself.
Mm-hmm. And he would be the only actor capable of doing that, to channel Tom
Capaldi
Baker to that extent and have his own character.
Yeah, exactly. Which is, again, as you know, Old Media Guy, kind of what I've been doing with mine is I'm still using the 12th Doctor, but I've encouraged that morphing more into a Fourth Doctor blend of 12 and 4 in the way I've been portraying him.
Interesting. And I haven't finished it, by the way, and the reason is simple. I have the MP3s of your videos where you read your stories. They're on my MP3 player, and I use them on long road trips, and that's how I get through the road trips.
Makes sense.
So they help me get through some rather nasty traffic.
So you need to drive some more places. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I do need to drive. Oh, and Ellen says, at the time I was told I looked just like Nyssa.
Yeah, I missed the first episode she appeared in and got to school the next day, and everybody at school went, "What were you doing on the telly last night?"
We have to see a picture now, Ellen. I'm sorry.
No, I don't look like that. I don't look like that anymore.
Hey, come on. The actress who played Nyssa doesn't look like that anymore.
That's true. I'll see if I can find a picture of me at the time.
Okay.
That will take some time, so I think my mum probably has them all.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, you and me both.
I was going to say, I don't remember what Nyssa. I do remember what Nyssa looks like. Yeah, I can remember this.
And that was another example of some really excellent casting. Of course, I'm forgetting her name now. Janet Fielding. It's Sarah Sutton. That's it. Sarah Sutton was just perfect for that role.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's
I'm going to
really
be
funny.
conscious.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, carry on.
It's really funny that the same people who cast her to be Nyssa and cast Janet Fielding to be Tegan also cast Matthew Waterhouse to be Edric.
Mm.
You know, that's kind of like coming out with Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and then Rambo: Last Blood. It's like, what is that last choice there? What after the first two choices? What? Oh. Oh, to see Michael Williams and Judi Dench together look for a fine romance.
It's a light comedy. It's nothing highbrow about it at all, but it's pleasant. But you'll get to see him acting as well then. I mean, he's obviously done a lot of other things, and I think he did a lot of Shakespeare on stage and things like that.
Well, my understanding is those two would spend their week doing their jobs. Like she was doing a sitcom, he was doing Sherlock Holmes and whatever. And instead of kicking back on the weekend and saying, you know, what's on the telly, like most of us do, like certainly I do, they would say things like, why don't we go to such and such bookstore, grab a book of Shakespeare off the shelf and start doing Shakespearean dialogues for whoever's there.
Fabulous.
Yeah. And that's how you tell you're in the right profession, when you say, I've got some time off. How about we keep doing the thing we were doing?
Yeah.
Indeed.
But that, of course, is part of the difference between American actors and British actors. The American actors are trained to be good in commercials, and from there they go on to something else. Whereas in the British acting landscape, it's the theater that's king. So we get a bunch of people who look good and from one or two angles and can stand there with a smirk, versus we get these people with stage training who just blow away their competition. To the point where some people are saying, well, why are we even cast? I mean, they cast Benedict Cumberbatch as an American in Doctor Strange. And some people were beginning to complain that all they're doing is going over to England and getting these great actors. Why don't you address the problem that we have no theater community here except for community theater, which means it's free, it's amateur. We don't have anything set up for young actors to learn their craft in such a meticulous way that when they go on screen, they appear absolutely authentic.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like House as well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
With Hugh Laurie. And he says that when he goes over to the States to do a series, he speaks in that accent all the time.
Oh, wow.
So it's not, he doesn't turn it on for the camera. He lives that, not quite the character in total, but certainly in terms of accent and movement, I guess, because different nations move in different ways.
Yeah. And it's so funny to see Bertie Wooster as this American man who's just half there. You got Queen Victoria on your money? You're British. I remember that line.
And it's funny because I think of him and Stephen Fry. They were, for me, they started as comedians. That's how I know them. And so I see them as successors to Monty Python, I suppose, in the sort of comedy they were doing when they first came out. Sort of,
I was lucky enough.
Monty Python, not the 9 o'clock news, and then Fry and Laurie.
Yeah.
And
I love the old a bit of Fry and Laurie stuff. It was fantastic. But I don't know, Stephen Fry seems to have slowed down a lot and decided he's really slipped into the beloved treasure role. I'm not sure he's doing anything quite as fantastic or edgy as a bit of Fry and Laurie anymore. And Hugh Laurie's doing well as an actor, but yeah, he's not the same biting wit that he once was either, I think.
I think that's probably just about getting older. They say if you're not a socialist in your youth and a conservative with a small c, and when you get older, there's something seriously wrong.
I'm not sure how socialist either of them were, but they were definitely much more satirists.
Yeah, I'm going to say that's a very. That's to get the contrast, isn't it? But yeah, it's.
But that happens to nearly every comedian. Yeah. Like in the 40s, Bob Hope was at his peak, and he developed a style of comedy that it'd be too much to say it was his own, but he was certainly at the top of his class. And he kept going into that in the 50s and tried to extend it to the 60s, and it didn't work in film, so he switched to TV. And I remember watching him as a kid, and I wasn't quite old enough to realize that he was getting slow. But watching his specials was something that you do every year. And then I think it was the 82 special with Brooke Shields, and you just realize how old and tired he was. And he kept going. And he kept going past the point he could see or hear what was going on. It's like, oh, goodness gracious. And he's not the only comedian to do that. So, yeah, unfortunately, you have the choice with your favorite comedians of either watching them slowly decline, like Jack Benny. If you want to see something sad, watch some of Jack Benny's final work. By that time, he's so slow because he's nearly 80. It's either that or they do Johnny Carson and say, this is it, I'm leaving, goodbye. Like Bilbo and Hobbiton. You don't see him anymore.
George Burns, I think, is probably the only one who could still just about pull it off when he was very old.
Yes. Yeah, he was wonderful. Of course, he managed to transfer his act to him sitting there smoking a cigar and telling jokes.
Yeah. Yes.
I think that's how he did it.
That's what I remember. He was but he still had that edge to it and the timing. And I think
Yes.
that makes the difference. So,
I have to agree. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, talking of which, Dave Allen. Have you ever watched anything of Dave Allen?
No, I have
As a
not.
kid, I used to see it on TV.
Yeah, oh, he's brilliant. They're all on YouTube. I've sat and watched them back to back, and you can watch him back to back. Well, I can anyway. Watch him back to back, and I don't get fed up. He's just the best one, and I think it's the one that turns up on most compilations. Is it's what do you call it? It's the cortege going to the cemetery. You'll know it. I don't want to spoil it because that gives it away. But
So Dave Allen Cemetery, got it.
Yeah, he's really, really good at silent films, and this is a silent film.
Okay.
It's about 5 minutes long. He does sketch shows and various things. But he's Irish, or he was Irish, brought up as a Catholic, and he has a lot to say about the Catholic Church.
Yes, you've just there was a lot of simmering anger under there, wasn't there?
Yes, yeah.
He was good.
Okay, that kind of harkens back to a topic we had at the very beginning of this live stream.
Go on.
Right, it was something I wanted to bring up and didn't get the chance to, which is it would be very interesting to have not quite rant videos, but controlled rants on videos. But instead of I am one thing and you are another, and I'm going to rant against you, how about we turn our powers of analysis to say, this is my group and here's how we suck. I've been tempted many times to say, and I don't, because I don't want to talk about personal things too much. Yeah, you don't want to hear my politics and religion. I'll bring it up if necessary, but on the whole, I'm sure no one just, shut up, dude. Okay. And I do. But there's been times I want to say, look, this is the position I am. And I want to talk about the problems with my position, because my side, quote unquote, seems to think if we just have things our way, that rainbows will spontaneously sprout out of unicorns and everyone will be happy. And it won't. It will. We may improve the future if we do what we are considering doing, but we are going to go back to having some things that haven't existed for 120 years, which because of the changes we're going to make, and it's going to hurt a lot of people, and we need to be prepared, not have our heads stuck in the clouds. So that could be kind of fun, but at the same time, who's going to watch it? Because the people who completely disagree with you are saying, well, yeah, obviously, I've been saying that for years. And the people who are supposedly on your side are going, oh, you've hurt my feelings, and they walk away.
That reminds me of the third topic. I was going to say, let's wrap it up and go to sleep. But since you said another topic, this is relevant for now, but it's a very wide open topic potentially. And I was going to say, can good story writing survive Orwellian attempts to control speech and thought? And of course, I'm not thinking about an Orwellian government necessarily, but I am thinking about the controls by many areas of the media to only say certain things. And this goes back to the cancel culture stuff we were talking about before the stream. Can storytelling survive in a culture which is turning on each other or turning on certain individuals for expressing views?
Oof.
Discuss.
My biggest fear is that people generally do whatever is easiest. That if you want to know what someone's going to do next, that's it. Whatever is easiest for them is generally it. You will find individuals who won't do that, and those are individuals that generally you say are wonderful. But groups of people generally do what's easiest. So what I expect to happen is, of course, pessimistic, which is storytelling goes the way German storytelling went in the 30s, where the stories are all conforming to the new national myth, and anyone who has anything else to say is marginalized, to put it mildly. That's what I fear anyway, because I don't know where you could do a new story right now. Let's say you have the 2021 version of Star Trek in your head. Where are you going to do it? Are you going to go to the main media producers? Why would you do that? Okay, so are you going to go to Ben Shapiro's new group that he's starting? Well, he's just starting it. Are you just going to make a radio show, quote unquote, and put it online on YouTube? Well, once your head is above the parapet enough, it gets shot off. So you hit the point where you've got 50,000 fans listening to you every week, and suddenly someone goes, "What you're saying is istophobish," or what have you, whatever.
I'm offended is enough. Apparently.
Say it again.
I'm offended is enough. Apparently.
Yeah, I'm offended. So someone's offended. Next thing you know, there's a drive on, say, Twitter, just as pulling an example out of the air, to get the thing canceled.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do about that. And that's probably why we're all looking for a leader right now. All of this mainstream media where we're looking for this perfect leader to get us out of this mess is because deep down we know not everyone is capable of being a leader, or especially a great leader. They're just as rare as people who can sing wonderfully and beautifully, or dance, or act, or whatever. Just pick a skill. There's just very few of them that do it well. And we all have a sense if this wonderful leader just came out of the woodwork, we would be fine. Yeah, maybe. Depends on the leader. Would we even listen to a leader that didn't give us everything we wanted?
Exactly. The people we have in power are not leaders. They are panderers. They are attempting to sound at least like they're giving everyone everything they ever wanted. And a leader doesn't have to do that. A leader has to make the hard decisions. A leader has to say things that people aren't going to want to hear. And we don't have any of those in politics right now, if that's where you're referring to.
Yeah, we don't over here either. We have a situation where... Go ahead, Emily. Go ahead.
No, but when we do have someone like that, they are ridiculed, pilloried, and treated as a monster.
Also true.
And they do end up getting, the problem is they are so good at what they do, they actually overstay the point at which they are useful to society. And then they fulfill the caricaturization, if that's even a word, of being a monster, because they have to keep moving forward. So they have to keep changing things, and they change things beyond what's good at that point.
Yeah.
Change is sake. Yes, that is one of the big problems. Yeah.
Who was it said
right now we do need some change, but go on, sorry.
So I was going to say, somebody said the only way out of politics is to fail. Because very, very, very few people stand down. Tony Blair was clever. He stood down just before everything went pop. So he appears to be... So history will write him as a very successful leader, and Gordon Brown as a rubbish follower. Whereas actually what Gordon Brown had to deal with was the result of all the things that Tony Blair had done during his leadership.
I know. Something that everyone in the mainstream media completely is ignoring, and has ignored from the very get-go, is that the Labour Party was at its most popular under John Smith.
Yes.
And its popularity declined as a straight line, straight down from the moment of his death. In other words, Tony Blair was on the downswing of popularity, and he rode John Smith's dead coattails for his entire run.
Absolutely.
Until Gordon Brown picked up the complete, the all goodwill burnt. So whether he's good or bad, he was not given. He was given a shitty stick.
He was, yes. I think he probably was a lot better than history will write him.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing. He wasn't charismatic. I think he probably had a lot of good ideas that we never saw or never heard properly, because he'd been in number 11 for all that time. And then, as you say, he got the short end of it when he actually got to the point where he had the power to do some other changes other than around the economy.
It's really weird. I mean, going back to my Doctor Who friends, myself, John, and Hugh were all writing for... Actually, this is before we wrote for Big Finish, but we were all living together and writing. And we all saw... I was going to say John Major, but the reason I say it is because they are indistinguishable apart from their coiffure and their ability to smile. Tony Blair, when he popped up, my first thought was, who the hell is this used car salesman? He's clearly has no substance, no actual integrity, no thoughts of his own. This is a flim-flam merchant. How the hell can nobody see this? And when he got the leadership of the Labour Party, I was very cynical back then, and I've obviously changed vastly since. But I was going to vote for the first time, having been turned off, having to put up with the crap up to that point. I was about to vote, and then he took over, and I thought, sod it, there's no point. And it took me a while to overcome that thing. No, there are reasons to vote, even if you're not voting for them. But at the time, it turned me right off. But most of the country were all they think when he got elected, going, "Yay, things can only get better." Another reason why Cox is irritating. But that's another rant altogether.
Have I actually found the one other person in the entire world that thinks Cox is irritating?
Well, no, I mean, most of the physicists I work with also think he's irritating as well. My supervisor can't stand his guts. But yeah.
Other than myself and my mum, I've not met anybody else who just goes, "Get that man off of my screen."
You should definitely go and watch my recent video, when the BBC became worthless, in brackets, hints it's earlier than you think, because there's a nice section on Cox and his wonders of the solar system right in there. And it's kind of key to the beginning of the end.
Yeah, I watched that video. It's really good.
Thank you.
Cool. But going back to Tony Blair, when he got the leadership of the party, there was somebody I worked with was working as an agent for his local Labour Party group, and had obviously met him, seen him at events, and was going, "Oh, he's so wonderful, he's fabulous, he's," and like you, I'd seen him on television and on, what? He's just oily.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was then for years when I don't understand why people think he's wonderful. And then I used to be in the WI, and I went to the conference at which he spoke.
Mm-hmm.
And I was sitting up there going, he can't say that, because he started getting party political. And the WI, whilst it will campaign on political items, as in, no VAT. Yeah, they're not. It's not party. It is about the subject. It's not about who's in power. And he kept saying, "My party, this, my party," and I'm going, he can't say that. And then the ladies around me were going, so I was under 30 at the time, so they're going, "Helen, shush, no, shush." I'm going, he can't. It's getting quite angry. And then it was the ladies, ironically, from the northeast, which, for those who don't know, the northeast of the UK is usually considered a Labour stronghold. They started the slow clap, and then it spread around. We were all doing it. But up until the start of his speech, it was so sucking up. Can I say arse licking? Because that's what he was doing.
All he ever did.
Yeah. And I sat and watched him with growing horror, because I thought, this is how Hitler rose to power. I can see now why people are following him. There's just, when you see him live, there's something there. I've just
Ellen, I'm sorry to break in, but if there's a certain German political figure from the 1930s, if you say his name often enough, they strike the video.
Oh, I'm sorry. I won't say his name again. But the similarities in appeal. I mean, not in politics. I'm not going that far.
Not in politics.
But in the way people react, most of the public react to them speaking. That's the only comparison I can get. It was like, because I've never understood what happened in the 30s either.
Well, here's a controversial point, but I won't mention any controversial names that might get us struck, and hopefully that hasn't happened already. But I would remind you that the fundamental problem with democracy is that 50% of the population will have IQs in double or fewer figures.
Mm.
That's right. Half the population has an IQ of 99 or less.
Yeah.
So there's no surprise that we get we get people who represent the people in power, even though they're not the best people to be leading them. Sorry, the people who represent the people who voted for them in power is what I should say.
Yeah. Well, we get, and we get to the leaders we deserve, and you shouldn't ever vote for somebody who wants to be in power.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
Say again. Sorry, I'll need to go.
That's the hard part. Everyone available to get a vote probably shouldn't get a vote.
And you reminded me of your favorite, one of your favorite characters, Plato, or Mediaite, because he's very famously through the Masterpiece of Socrates said that you'll never make philosophers become kings because they realize just what a trap that is and they don't want to be caught there. So you don't end up with wise people tending to aim to be leaders.
Yeah, and Aristotle tried his best with young Alexander, and Alexander said, that's cool, but I'm off to conquer the known world.
Mm.
And he made a darn good job of it.
Well, he made a great job of it. His troops only balked when he said, let's do India now. They're like, oh, no, India, that's too far. We don't like curry.
That would have been interesting, because after India would have been China, and that really would have been interesting.
That's when, if he hadn't gotten his ass handed to him in India, China would have done the trick.
Yeah.
Because they were fielding armies of a size uncontemplated in the European, Middle Eastern area at the time.
Yes. Yeah.
So that would have been fun.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, back to my original point, though. Do you think that storytelling can survive in this finger-wagging and cancelling environment?
It will survive underground if it has to. And I think it'll survive in corners. It will survive in other languages. I say I learn Welsh, and that is the Welsh are a nation of storytellers. And there's a lot more stuff coming out now in Welsh. Not just the highfalutin stuff, but there's more for adult learners as well. So it's not just children's stories; there are stories for adults, and so you might not get the next great thing, but the tradition will carry on, and some of them will be better than others, and some will survive and some won't. And you may well find the next one. Sorry.
Yeah. No, when I posed the question, even as I was writing it down, I was thinking, what it reminded me of was, of course, during the height of the Soviet era, that you got some brilliant novelists writing. And I'm not very good at the names of these, but there are brilliant novelists writing under that regime. Of course, they were often either having to smuggle their books out to be published in the West, or they were smuggling themselves out eventually to be published in the West. But yeah, that speech and thought controlling environment was producing still great stories and literature. But my thought now is, and you just said, well, maybe they can hide in Wales. But if you're in this side of the environmental split, if you like, the political split, if you like, and this side of the world, where do you hide your literature? Where do you pump your literature out? Who's going to be receptive to your controversial literature?
Well, let's not forget, in the Soviet Union, they had, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, samizdat literature, which meant someone wrote a book, they typed it all up, and they had their copy, they had a master copy, but then they would type up a second copy. So if you can imagine Tolkien typing up Lord of the Rings twice, that's what he would do. And there would be networks of people who were saying, I want to read your book. So the first person on the chain would get the book, they'd call in sick, they would read the book for 24 hours straight if necessary, because they had to move it on to the next person down the chain that quickly. And that is how Dr. Zhivago made its way around the Soviet Union. That's the way some of Solzhenitsyn's work made its way around the Soviet Union, and a lot of others too.
Yeah. There was a lot of satirical stuff against Stalin as well that was passed around hand to hand in a similar manner. So I mean, if you look,
because at least we have better technology now for passing the stuff on easily. That is one thing, I suppose.
Yeah.
That is true.
If you're thinking about the US, then there's a big resurgence in the native pre-European languages. So I took a look at learning Navajo, but I'm learning so many others I can't tackle that as well at the same time. But there's Navajo and Mayan and Yucatan. I'm sure that some of the other Native American languages, if there's enough people who still can speak them, will start to make a resurgence as well. And that's where that will happen. And again, because the language is of peoples who at their height had no written language as such, with a great oral tradition, they are languages that tell stories.
Yes.
Mhm. Yeah.
I know I sounded pessimistic when I posed the question, but I do actually in my
That's good.
heart think that we will continue to produce good literature, which reminds me of something that I meant to say to Anti-Tracker before he ran off, and that was after I've done the current season 13 of the Doctor Reads the Doctor. I was thinking, I've told you this already, Old Media Guy. I was thinking of asking my YouTube friends to contribute story ideas for episode for season 14. Hopefully I will get onto that, because I think this should be a great avenue, a great outlet for people's independent writing. If we all come together and contribute together, we can become the outlet.
I hope so. That would be a lot of fun.
So that put you on notice, Old Media Guy, and
yes,
Emily as well.
I've got a story. It's percolating in my head, and I've written the beginning and the end made me cry. And I told my wife about it, and I started to cry while telling her about it. She goes, "Yeah, you need to write that story."
I have one as well that I'm kind of work on that now and again. I'm not very disciplined, but I did for a while. I used to be on an engineering forum, and they posed a weekly engineering puzzle, and I started writing a story based on the engineering puzzle. So I had a number of characters. It sort of went a bit Mills and Boone. It was whole point was very tongue in cheek. So I mean, my favourite was there was a question about static electricity. So I had this woman walking, in a beautiful silk dress, walking down to answer the door to come down to her beau had arrived to take her to whatever function they were going to. And of course, as soon as they met and he went to kiss her, he got a massive electric shock. To summarise it was written slightly better than that. But I did a number of those, and they just went on, and we had, I can't remember, there was, it just depends, but the theme for each one was set by the topic of the question that week. So we've had some in space and all sorts of things. It just varied. Work got in the way after a while, which is a bit unfortunate.
That sounds fun.
It was good fun while it lasted.
Awesome.
You could rewrite that as a book for 12-year-olds, a book about science.
Yeah, it would work. Yes, it would work like that, and it was fun because everybody on the site was engineers, so they all got the jokes, the point of it and the payoff. So it's good. It was fun. I'd have to hunt round at least 2 computers back to find out where I've saved them.
I've lost things that way.
I have all of my computers that I have ever owned, and last time I tried, my 386 still fired up.
Wow. I had some files on a computer that somebody who was living with me thought it would be fun to take with them when they left, so I never saw those files again.
Oh, swines.
Yeah.
One of the stories in here, I had to retype from the one paper copy I found in a box in the loft.
Wow.
That was scarily close to being lost forever.
Now, did you revise it, or did you just retype it?
No, I mean, Eon and myself, acted editor again. We did make some minor changes to like positions of commas and stuff, but I insisted we left it almost entirely as it was originally first published, and so minimal. Some rewordings happen, but they are very minimal. So they are basically as they came out.
Interesting.
Excellent. Yes, I must admit, I do think paper is still important.
Oh, yeah,
because
me too.
however technology changes, you will always be able to read something printed on paper.
Yeah.
I'm very old-fashioned in that sense. I don't like reading for fun, for pleasure on any electronic device or screen. I work on that. That's fine. And the same comes to writing. Everything I've ever written that's the work of fiction has been handwritten and still is. I haven't got it with me, so I can't show you. But my latest series is being handwritten as I speak. I then type it up after each episode, but I have to write fiction by hand. Work writing, including the PhD, that was done entirely on the computer. That part of my brain clearly doesn't balk at the idea, but anything creative has to flow from the pen in my hand, brain through the hand onto the page.
Yep, same here.
I can't do that anymore. Right with
No?
the pen. Bursitis.
Oh,
Oh, nasty. Yes.
Yeah, I can, and I do write down when I'm studying Latin. I will conjugate an entire verb on a page or two and put it in a binder. But when they give me about 5 new verbs, I'm cursing the author because by the 5th verb, my hand hurts.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with modern technology. It's much easier to get the communication done.
Have you tried kinesthetic tape?
Say that again.
Kinesthetic tape, I think it's called. So I can see mine here from here. Kinesology tape.
No, I've never heard of it.
If you watched the Olympics, the last Olympics, I did see some, particularly the divers. I noticed it on. They had it taped across them. I have rheumatoid arthritis, and I find it's brilliant. It's sort of fabricy tape, a bit like plasters, the plaster tape. But you stretch it across your skin and stick it on. And I've had it stay on for 5 days. And what it does is it sort of stimulates the muscles. It sounds like snake oil. I saw it cheap in somewhere, and I thought, well, for that price, I'll give it a go. But I find it works.
Okay.
You can put enough pressure on with rheumatoid arthritis if you get swelling in the joints, and I find it gives enough pressure to start moving the fluid out of the joints. But if I've got muscle pain, if I put it across there, making the muscle work against that little bit of pressure on the skin helps reduce the pain. And I'm allergic to painkillers, so I'll try anything that reduces pain.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
That's really helpful, useful advice. Right, I'm going to have to be really antisocial now. I think I need to. We've been well over the 2 hours, haven't we, Old Media Guy?
We have, yes. It's been
So
fun.
I think I'm going to. It's been really fun. I'm going to have to call this to an end in the next 5 minutes, but we should do the goodbyes properly. So obviously, everyone knows who I am, hopefully, who's ever been here anyway, all 3 of you. No, I don't mean you. I mean the 3 people who are watching in the chat. But I think we should do final comments. My final comments are, I'm done. Thanks for watching. Old Media Guy.
There are people who think quick on their feet, and then there's people like me. So about 3 hours after this ends, I'll know what I should have said. So I hope to find out what that is and make a separate video about what I should have said at this point. I have to say one thing that's serious, at least, which is I'm not sure I would have survived the last 2 years without social media that we have, the good social media, the way we are able to interact on YouTube with like-minded people. That is open-minded, don't agree on everything, but we agree to talk without trying to kill each other. And on Discord and maybe 1 or 2 other places. By avoiding some of the more toxic aspects of social media, you can actually have some sort of relationship with friends that you end up losing as an adult because everyone's busy working and they're busy with their kids and they're busy with that. And it's really been nice. And I hope we can keep doing this for quite a long time.
Likewise. And Ellen, what would you
Thank
like to say as your final thoughts?
Thank you very much for making me welcome. As I say, I think I've known Old Media Guy for about 2 or 3 weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very grateful. And my final words are, left hand down a bit.
What?
Oh, come on. How can you not know what the Navy Lark is? Oh, goodness.
I'm aware of the title. I may have had it.
Yes, I will make sure you get some sort of stimulus package from America regarding that. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, on that note, I'm going to do the inelegant leaping towards the computer to stop the stream. This fantastic editing. Here we go. Whoa! And ending now.